Good evening. At this time, I would like to call to order the Milton School Committee open budget hearing of 2014. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For anyone who may have arrived later, we are going to have our open budget hearing now, followed by citizen speak, and then go into our regular meeting. So at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Glenn Pavlicek, Assistant Superintendent for Business, to lead us in a brief budget presentation, and followed by an open discussion.
The purpose of this is just to bring people up to date on where we are with our proposed fiscal 15 budget. We've, over the last couple of months, discussed what we needed to go forward to next year, what the Warrant Committee suggested we should look at as a possible level of funding, and we analyzed a variety of different scenarios and looked at the cuts that would be necessary if we receive that amount of funding. What we want to just do tonight is bring you up to date on where we are. The Warrant Committee has done their initial deliberations. The warrant is being ready for press at the moment. They're doing their final edits on it. And so the situation has changed a little bit for the good, thankfully. And so I just wanted to give you a very brief presentation on where we are. Initially, we had asked for $39.6 million budget for next year, an increase of about $2.1 million over last year. Part of that was the achievement gap issues and the various things in the Advancement 2.0 budget, and other factors were involved. Initially, the Warrant Committee said, well, what if, prepare a scenario that gave you about $1.3 million in recurrent funding and $500,000 in one-time funds. And the exercise we went through over the last several months was basically what would we have to do if we received funding roughly $747,000 less than we asked for. And we went through a variety of scenarios, and it was not at all a pretty picture. What has happened since then is they have voted a higher level of funding for us due to looking at the actual revenues from the town, or the projections of state aid and so forth. They're actually looking at funding us at about $430,000 above what they had initially stated. So basically what we are looking at the moment, and this could easily change still before town meeting, but this is what's going to be in the warrant, is a difference of about $316,000 between what we asked for and what we are likely to receive for next year. And for those of you who have seen these before, we had 3 levels of cuts that we were looking at, some of which were very troublesome. And so just to show you where we are with respect to those levels, the first set of cuts we looked at were a variety of non-personnel items, increasing some rental fees, some one-time chargebacks, some savings for on the half days for some of our aides. The fact we have a tuition didn't sped student and a few things like that, that totaled about $250,000. And that makes up the bulk of what our shortfall would be. So we had 2 other layers on this, what we called position reductions with high impact, which was the possible loss of a co-taught teacher at the middle school due to enrollment, a possible loss of a .2 elementary speech teacher due to enrollment, and some reductions in middle school grade 8 science and geography of a section each. With the level of the funding recommended from the Warrant Committee, those middle school geography and science cuts would not be necessary. We're still looking at the potential loss of a co-taught teacher at the middle school and a reduction in speech teachers, which may or may not be able to be accomplished due to enrollment. We have to look at special ed enrollment and are doing so. So those are still possible cuts. However, the slide that upset most of us the most were all these different reductions in the chorus at grade 5, middle school history teacher, middle school electives, high school electives, a variety of very high-impact cuts. With the level of funding that's being recommended by the warrant committee, these would not be necessary. We would have the money to fund all these things, and we would, in fact, not be looking at any of these cuts for next year. So the good news is we are nowhere near in the situation we're looking at 6-8 weeks ago. We're in a much better scenario going into town meeting. As we say, there's still room to maneuver here. The state local aid is not set yet. We have some more work to do on what the town's local receipts are. So in general, what happens between the going to press at the warrant committee and the floor of town meeting generally is good news for us rather than bad. So this is a good place to start. At this point in the budget process, we're in a considerably better place than we were 6 or 8 weeks ago. So the news, from the warrant committee in the basement of town hall at this point is good news at this point in the process. So that's just a quick statement of where we are. And so I'll turn it back to the chair for anyone's reaction to that.
So that was a very brief presentation. Thank you for that, Dr. Pavlicek. And I would also like to say that there were hundreds of hours that went into all the work leading up to where we are right now, both on behalf of the school committee, the finance subcommittee, the administration, and the warrant committee. And I want to personally thank all of you that have been involved in this and gotten us to this good news story where we're at right now. At this time, we are in an open hearing, and this is an opportunity for citizens to come up and speak to this budget that's being proposed right now. If you do come forward, we ask that you give your name and your address. And is there anyone currently present that would like to speak to the budget? It doesn't look like it. So at this time, I will close the open budget hearing. And we will now move into call to order the March 26, 2014 meeting of the Milton School Committee. At this time, could we just look at the minutes for tonight's, the agenda for tonight's meeting? I have one addition under executive session. Letter B, we'd add negotiation strategy for MEA. Are there any other additions or corrections to this agenda? Hearing none, we'll accept it as written. Move on to citizen speak. Is there anyone here for citizen speak? Where? Thank you. That's okay. Jay Fundling, you're welcome to come to the microphone and state your name and address and speak right into the microphone, please. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Jay Fundling, 39 Sias Lane, Milton. I am a Glover kindergarten parent, and I'm here tonight to talk about the lotteries that were held for French immersion this year. We've been told there are 13 families on the waiting list for Glover and 16 families on the waiting list for Cunningham. I followed the discussion last year very closely surrounding French immersion. And one thing I noticed was that all the participants said, let's really promote the English program, and if we do that, hopefully we won't have a lottery in coming years. Well, this year, according to my math, about 30% of Glover families chose English. So it seems that the promotion this year didn't work as hoped. Last year, there were 12 families district-wide on the waiting list for French. This year, there are 29, which I figure is about 9% of all the kindergartners in Milton. So it seems we're moving in the wrong direction. But in my opinion, it's not too late to promote the English program for kindergartners this year. We know many parents of kindergartners who selected French as an option in order to keep their options open and are still trying to decide which program is best for their child. I would very much like to see the school district help them make their best decision. One way we can do this, I think, is to hold a hands-on kindergarten STEM information night, where parents and kindergartners can come to the school and see what's going on with the STEM program. They can see the software that's used, they can see the robots that are used, the kids can play with the robots, the parents can play with the robots. This would really show the families, here's a program that could be available to your first grader next year. This is an option for you. I think a lot of parents would very much appreciate seeing that and knowing what their options are. If this isn't done, then it seems we find ourselves in a situation where We're filling the English classes with families who are forced to be there rather than families who choose to be there. This is the exact opposite of what everyone seemed to want last year. And finally, I'd just like to say that we're kindergarten parents. We're new to all this. We're starting a relationship with Milton Public Schools that's going to last for 12 years. And there are 29 of us who currently feel like we're being told, well, you lost the lottery, too bad. And that's a rough way to start a long-term relationship.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who didn't sign up that would be interested in speaking at Citizen Speak? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Milton School Committee meeting of January 29th, 2014.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Padera. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? So it was 5 and 1 abstention. Thank you. And Ms. Gormley? your
Thank you, Chairman
superintendent's report.
Sheridan. I'd like to invite to the table our athletic director, Larry Rooney. Larry, will you join us? This is the highlight of every school committee meeting. I can speak for myself. The other school committee members and administration can speak for themselves. And so tonight we have student athletes and a Milton High School student here to be recognized for his academic honors. So Larry, I'm going to ask you to invite up each of our teams that made tournament play and have your coaches and your student athletes introduce themselves to the school committee, the public, and share the good news. So welcome.
First, I want to thank the school committee for inviting the athletic teams tonight in this past school committee meeting that have had a successful season this winter. So thanks to the school committee, the Milton High School administration, and certainly all of Milton Public School community for your support throughout this winter. In particular, tonight we have 4 teams with us that we want to recognize. We have our girls hockey team, boys basketball team, our wrestling team, and our cheerleading team. And if I can call up right now Coach Bob Dwan of our girls hockey team to introduce his players. Bob Dwan.
And his team. They join us at the table.
Good evening. My name's Coach Bob Dwan, first-year coach for the girls hockey team. First, I'd just like to thank Superintendent Gormley for inviting me and the team down here to be recognized. I'll have each individual player state their name, year, and what position they play.
You can pull that microphone right out and just pass it down, please.
I'm Shannon O'Toole. I'm forward, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Isabel Johnson. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm in forward.
I'm Emma Newell. I'm in 8th grade, and I'm a forward.
Hannah Larry, captain, junior, and I'm a defense.
I'm Laura Hill. I'm in 8th grade, and I play forward.
Kate Driscoll, captain. I'm a sophomore, and I play forward.
I'm Bella Simeone, and I play D, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Megan Darty, and I play D, and I'm in 8th grade.
Megan McDougall, I'm a sophomore, and I play defense.
I'm Courtney Dunn. I'm a forward, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Hannah O'Toole. I'm a freshman, and I play forward.
As you can see, this is only about half the team. The other half is right now is at tryouts for next season, for fall season. But as you can see, we had a lot of 8th graders, a very young team. We ended up the season 8-8-4. The last week of the season, we needed 5 points out of a possible 8 to make the state tournament, which the girls worked hard the whole week, and we ended up beating a Division I team out of Rhode Island, Medfield, and then we tied Ashton Prep, which was another Division I team, 0-0, but ended up beating them 1-0 in a shootout to win the Cougar Classic tournament. That propelled us into the tournament. The girls could have been satisfied just to make the tournament, but they weren't. They worked hard. We went as a 26 seed out of 28 teams. We ended up going against number 7, Archbishop Williams, who had beaten us earlier in the season, 1-0. We went down 3-0 after one period. Again, the girls could have just gave up. They didn't. They came all the way back, tying the score 3-3 with about 1:06 left in the game, and then eventually beat Archie's in overtime 4-3. So that moved us on to the number 10 seed, Cohasset Hanover. We played them on Saturday, March 1st, down in their place in Rockland. We went down there, and again, the girls played well, and we beat them 4-0. Moved us into the quarterfinals, which is the top 8 out of 48 D2 teams. We got into a battle with Wellesley again. They were seeded number 2, and we ended up losing to them 3-1. But again, we were down 3-0. They battled back 3-1. We actually outplayed them the second and third period, but just didn't have enough in the tank. But great season overall for the girls. Top 8 out of 48 teams, as I said. Beginning of the season, they were ranked number 34. Ended up number 13 in D2, and then the Globe South has number 4 last Thursday. So the girls had a great season, young team, and looking forward to next year for another great season. Thank you.
No, I think the school committee might want to speak to that.
I think we do. Great season, girls. My son played hockey for Milton High, so I'm a big fan, and hockey's kind of my favorite. Don't tell anybody else. I was at the game, the last game. What an exciting game with Wellesley. You guys did a great job. And here's my thought for the 8th graders. We're counting on you for 4 more years. Great season. It was really exciting to watch.
And you just bring such community. You know, people love to come out and watch the games, and travel with you and go to different rinks, as cold as they are. Oh my goodness, I think I was at the coldest hockey game ever, but
You can tell she's not a hockey player.
yeah. But it's just very exciting to see the fact that you're growing and what you accomplished with that many 8th graders. So it's just the best is yet to come.
Coach, good job.
And I, on behalf of the school district, I want to congratulate you and your coach. And what I say, not being an athlete, but having admiration for your athletic skills and you keeping up your studies, the pride that you bring to your high school, to your school district, and to your town. And the enthusiasm that your participation and your involvement in the tournament brought to the whole community was unbelievable, and you made me very, very proud. And I have to tell you, Principal Jack couldn't be here tonight, but here's a little secret. He'd come back from those early girls' ice hockey games, right? He was there right at the beginning, and he'd tell us, you can't believe the way they skate, Mary. You just can't believe the way he skates. So you have a converted fan to girls' ice hockey, and he's very, very proud, as all of we of you. Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you, Coach.
As you all notice, we have quite a few 8th graders on that team. And the great thing is there are no graduating seniors, so we do hope to have the whole team back next year. And again, congratulations to Coach Dwan and the girls. Up next from this winter season is Coach Sean Lepresti of our boys basketball team.
I think we have one chair right up here, and if you pull that chair right up, pull that chair right up, pull that chair right over.
Do you just want us to introduce ourselves? Okay.
I'm Jonathan Pierre.
Sean Lepresti. I'm Cormac Honors.
Maybe tell us what year you are, too, please.
I'm a senior.
I'm a junior.
I'm Anthony Smith. I'm a senior. I'm Dennis McAuliffe, and I'm a junior.
Cameron White, junior.
Matt Papalambros, senior.
David Mullen, junior.
Leroy Goodman, Senior.
Malik Malcolm, Junior.
Alan Pierre, Senior.
Just to recap our season, we were at one point, we were 5-7, and we won 7 of our last 8 games to qualify for the state tournament. We were winning at 12-8. What seed were we? We were a 12 seed. We played very well in the state tournament, made a really good run. Faced a very challenging team at the end, New Mission, who eventually won Division II state champions. And to recap the season, the men in front of you faced a lot of adversity this year, both on and off the court. And they faced each challenge, especially the seniors, head on, never backed down, showed a lot of character, a lot of values, and they did a great job.
I just want to say we have some awesome wall hangings here, plaques from your very exciting game that was held at Boston Garden, which was a treat for all of the community to be able to go and cheer you on. It was a great event, so you played your hearts out, guys.
So I know what I just said about hockey, but
Yeah, no.
the game, the UMass game, let me talk about that first. I was literally on the edge of my seat. I've never been to a more exciting game. And you guys, you've got heart. That's all I can say. You know how to close, and you did it consistently in the tournament, time after time. You'd be down middle of the third quarter, maybe early fourth quarter, and then boom, close, and it's all over. It was really exciting to watch. And by the way, for those of you who are juniors, you look really good in the Garden, so let's go back. Nice job, Coach.
Kristen?
Thank you for making me laugh, because it's a very moving time for me, and I really appreciate what this team has done, what the coach has done. Allie really appreciates it. I'm sorry, but it was really very meaningful to our family. And those of you who have known us for a long time, we really appreciate that. I love the picture of Evan's shoes on the parquet floor. Allie and I agreed that if they got lost in the bedlam of you winning, because we assumed you were going to win, that would be okay, because Evan would love to have had lost his shoes on the garden floor. As you know, he lost everything, so all the time. So anyway, I don't mean to be emotional, but it was very, very moving for us and meant an awful lot. And Coach's support and the basketball program support and Mr. Rooney's support has been unbelievable. You guys raised a lot of money for Evan's scholarship. Coach Lepresti started the year off by being dunked in the dunk tank. So anyway, it's just incredible what you guys have done, and I loved every game. I don't think I missed any of the last games. I loved every minute of it, and I was so impressed with all of you. So you played from the heart, and I really appreciate that. So I'll stop now. Thank you.
Really quick, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to thank the boosters. The plaques that you see in front of you, the boosters help pay for those. And just really quick, the plaques that we did produce this year was the basketball team, our cheerleaders who are next in line, our cheerleaders and our dance team. They do a phenomenal job for us, and by far we put on the best show in the state. I've been to a lot of gyms. And no one puts on a better show than Milton High School, especially at a boys basketball game. So thank you, cheerleaders, and to the dance team, and to the boosters who support us all the time.
Perfect. Great.
I'd like to thank you for, letting me bring my kids to the Boston Garden, because they've never been there before. And at this point, I think that they think you just play there, which I'm going to keep it as that, because I don't think we'll ever get those seats again.
Right.
And you brought just as much as excitement, or more so than, a Celtics game, I'm sure. And I can't believe that Mr. Walker was sitting down at any point in that game against Boston, because we never did. We got there at halftime on the fan bus with Superintendent Gormley, and as soon as we got there, it was just a great, exciting game and a lot of fun to watch. And I don't know if one of the guy that's here that scored those last free point. Okay, I was thinking of your mother the whole time. It was so stressful, and you just held it together and just great under pressure. So I know how that can be. So thank you so much.
Let that be a lesson. Clutch free throws matter. Practice those free throws.
And tell us about that trophy. That's a beautiful trophy you've got there.
That's the trophy that we got for winning the Division II South at UMass.
Not the one we wanted to end the year with.
But we're proud of you.
It was pretty good this year being able to take home the championship trophy as opposed to last year taking home the finalist trophy. So it was kind of a goal that we set ourselves to get to again this year.
Good for you. Congratulations.
And I just like to add that we talk about the pride that you bring to your school and your town, and we go to events all the time, and how many people are at the events and what kind of participation we have. The MIAA, the governing organization of all the athletics in Massachusetts, said to me, "Lady, you in Milton, you travel better than anybody in the state." And so I said, a little secret, not being an athlete, I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Lady, nobody travels with this many supporters, this many high school students, and this many residents in a town to a basketball game." And they said that to us during your last 3 games. So you have a tremendous amount of support and appreciation, again, for your athletic skills, as Coach said, for how you joined as a team, and the pride you brought your community and your school. Thank you.
Great.
Our boys' basketball team did certainly provide us with a lot of excitement this winter as the season continued, and hiring those fan buses and getting the Milton community to come out and join us. It was a really exciting season. Great job, Coach Lopresti, and all your players. Congratulations. Up next, Coach Ted Carroll of our wrestling team, and if Ted can come up and introduce who he's with this evening.
We have one wrestler with us tonight. You know, there's a rugby dinner tonight, and a lot of the wrestlers, including a couple of the captains, play rugby, so they chose to go to the dinner, sorry.
We would too.
So, yeah, let me introduce my assistant coach.
Jake Smith, assistant coach. Millie Michaud, sophomore, and I wrestled in the 152-pound weight class.
We had a really great year. We had a lot of fun this year. We were 13-9. Some of the highlights, we beat an undefeated Division I school. They were 10-0 at the time, Methuen. We hosted sectionals this year, which was a really big deal. It was a lot of fun. We had 4 mats in the field house, and the kids just got like it was such a big deal to them. Looking forward to that and being able to do that, and after going to so many tournaments through the years, and then being able to host one here at Milton, it was a great experience for them. And we had 2 winners win that sectional tournament: our captain Jonathan Carrera and our other captain Zach Mazzarella. Zach won in dramatic fashion right at the end of the match against a Natick wrestler in overtime. It was really it was neat. And the other highlight was really our captain Jonathan Carrera was just had I think probably he's the most accomplished Milton wrestler that has wrestled in the school. He went over the 100-win mark about halfway through the season. He ended the season with 129 wins. He was second in the state, third at all states. He went to the New England tournament, and wrestled unbelievably, made it to the finals at New England's. Unfortunately, lost in the finals at the New England tournament. Tomorrow, he leaves for Virginia, and he's wrestling in the high school national tournament. Top 8 there, and he'll be an All-American. I think he has a real chance to do that. A great kid, and he deserves all the accomplishments that he's gotten. I know he's gotten a lot of, the newspapers, the Patriot Ledger has done some stories about him. He deserves it. So let me just read off the seniors really fast. Jonathan Carrera, Zach Mazzarella, Mark Chandler, Kevin Sampson, Lamb Collins, Timmy O'Connor, Justin Kelly, Matt Clifford, and Pat Crowley. So thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Phelan?
Coach, I just want to congratulate you and the young men on a great season, but I think it's ironic that you're here with just one wrestler, because when you took over the program several years ago, and not too many years ago, 3, 4? 5 years ago, there was only a handful of wrestlers, and we weren't sure if wrestling would continue in Milton. And I think between girls hockey and wrestling, the insurgence of these sports coming through, but wrestling being one that was on the cusp of not being alive in Milton, and now being an incredibly robust middle school and high school sport that brings this town out in an incredible way. So congratulations on doing that single-handedly and providing a great experience to so many wrestlers, from 8 to how many players this year? How many wrestlers?
Yeah, we had just under 40 on the high school team, but we do have, I started a youth program. We have 60 kids in the youth program, K through 4, and then I do a 5 through 8. The K through 4 was, as I told my wife every week, the hottest hour of the week. Sticking fingers in my ear. But we had 60 kids, and they loved it. They kept coming back, so a lot of fun.
So 100 Milton community members who now have something to do that's positive, that's a great sport, that's a lifelong experience for them. So thank you very much for bringing all that to the community.
Well, I meant to mention this earlier, but I think that it's been a great accomplishment this year that we've had a lot of young people coming to all sports events. And I think one of the things, we didn't know much about wrestling, and Miss Sheridan was a big pusher of wrestling, and so she told me about the tournament. And so I brought my son, and one of the neighbors, they weren't really happy with it. I don't think they knew I was bringing them, because they were practicing wrestling moves all the day afternoon. And but that's a great thing for them to see early on, and especially at the high school, and to showcase what we have there and what we have going on there. It was very exciting. They had never seen wrestling matches before, and they were following the mats and watching all the meets. And then they did find out about the youth program as well. So I'm sorry to add to your to your load there, but they might be showing up there as well. So thank you. It was great. It was really exciting to watch.
I can't let you go without saying something, because yes, I am probably the biggest fan, but I think that wrestling is one of those unique sports where you're really out there all by yourself, but it is so much a team sport, and I think that there are a lot of misunderstandings from what people see on TV with wrestling. And the fact that you're bringing this program down to, little kids and building this program up, that's consistently what we've seen across many years that I've been involved with wrestling, that unless you have that starter program, that feeder program, you're never going to be to the level you're at now. And it's so exciting to me to see. And I'm sure that there are dads at home that might have wrestled in high school or college that might be interested in helping out if you need help, that we can put a little plug in there.
Absolutely.
That they can contact the superintendent's office if they want to get involved and help out. So it's a wonderful sport. I'm so proud of each and every one of the boys. And, whether or not you win every match, you are a winner. So I thank you.
I want to thank Coach Carroll and
Harry
Jake.
came down to the New England tournament, by the way, and saw our match, Jonathan. We really appreciated that.
Well, I want to say that all for the viewing audience to know, these are unbelievable young people at Milton High School. And all of them have stayed here tonight to watch their peers be recognized, but all of that doesn't happen without coaches. And all of the coaches who come here tonight, and you epitomize somebody who's taken a love of what they do, and you are benefiting others. And so to John's point, you are a one-man show. You're doing your own feeder program. You brought that program back. You're already hosting a state tournament. And so what you've done for these young student athletes at Milton High School, I'm deeply appreciative. And I have to tell my one wrestling story. After Mr. Carr won in Providence, I said, oh, like the basketball team, are you going to go scoop out and watch, like Coach Lepresti, the films? Are you going to go find who you're going to wrestle against later on tonight at 11 o'clock or tomorrow morning? He said, no, Miss Gormley, I keep my eye on the prize. I don't watch anyone else, and I just go to the next meet. And so I told everyone in the office, I said, that is a great life lesson. He said, I just keep my eye on the prize, and I just wait for the next match. So, again, a lot of lessons learned, and a lot of congratulations to you and all the members of your team.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker?
Coach, I'm going to break with protocol. I wrestled in high school, so I know what this sport can do for someone. But I'm going to break with protocol and ask you, Mr. Rooney, and you to bring the team back when the seniors are available, because we have to recognize what they achieved. What Mr. Carrera and Mr. Mazzarelli achieved is just phenomenal. So they shouldn't miss their opportunity. So we've got a few more meetings before they're gone. So make sure you get back before we're done with the schedule for this year.
And thanks to Coach Smith, too.
Thank you, Coach Smith.
Thanks.
Thank
You know, we talk about the different sports that are here recognized tonight and have participated throughout the fall and winter, and I was never a wrestling fan myself, but when we hosted that state tournament in mid-February, boy, did they make me a fan of wrestling, watching all these kids compete, and just not our own Milton wrestlers, but the 11 other schools that were there for that tournament. It was a great event and very successful by Coach Carroll and his wrestling program. Up next, we have our biggest cheering group in the school and in the Milton Public School system. It's our cheerleading team, coached by Jessica Parsons, and she has quite a crew of cheerleaders with her this evening.
Maybe you can pull those chairs forward and the girls can go behind, too.
Good evening.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking you for having us here to be recognized. I'm Jessica Parsons. I'm the cheerleading coach here at the high school. I'd like the girls to introduce themselves and tell us their year as well.
My name is Deja Akins, and I'm a junior.
My name is Brooke Brundage. I'm a senior and I'm a captain.
My name's Tia Marathis, and I'm a captain, and I'm a senior. I'm Bridget Binda. I'm a senior.
I'm Deja Fox. I'm a junior.
I'm Hannah French Shelley. I'm a freshman.
I'm Bailey Cook. I'm a freshman.
I'm Monica Woods. I'm a sophomore. I'm Michaela Fonseca, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Paola Charles. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Madeline Driscoll. I'm a junior. I'm Michelle Davison. I'm a senior.
I'm Kaylin O'Carroll. I'm a senior.
I'm Cameron Travers, and I'm a freshman.
Obviously, the highlight of our season was cheering for the boys basketball team. We had so much fun following them and cheering with them at the Garden. It was such an exciting experience for us as well. We also competed this season at the Bay State Conference. We came in second in the Herget division and sixth in the Bay State. We also had 2 cheerleaders recognized at the Bay State Conference. Delia Yetman was the all-conference, and Bridget Binda was the honorable mention. We also had 2 cheerleaders this year cheer at the Pro Bowl in Hawaii, Tia Marathis and Madeline Driscoll. And I'm sure they have exciting stories if you want to hear from them from their trip to Hawaii. But we had a great season, and we were really excited to cheer the boys on. And then we also cheered a couple hockey games as well this season.
Wonderful. Mr. Phelan.
I would like to thank the girls for being at everything, it feels like, in the winter. They cheered for hockey, they cheered for the boys' basketball, and did you actually at some point cheer at one of the girls' games or several of the girls' games? And I really appreciate you being at all those events to make sure that all those teams are recognized. I think it's really important, and you deserve to be recognized. And I'd really like to thank Coach Lopresti, Coach Parsons, Coach Donovan, because it feels like those indoor winter sports have all come together, and I include the dance team and yourselves and boys and girls basketball all as one big indoor winter sport family of folks that use the field house to practice together and do a lot of things together. So you work together as coaches, which I appreciate Coach Lopresti and yourself doing that to make sure that all 4 teams are brought together, and it's really, really great to see that everybody shows up for everything. So thank you very much for all your support.
Thank you.
So you guys are the unsung heroes. Thanks for keeping the spirit up, and I think you were as excited as we were, but you helped us stay excited, and that matters. And I think that lifts all the athletes, so thanks a lot for what you do.
Thank you.
And without someone like Coach Parsons, it's great for the school committee and the viewing audience to see the number of cheerleaders and the cult that you have created, and your student athletes, and you're a team and competing out there. And some of the schools you go to don't have cheerleaders. So this is a really testimony to each of you and the team that you've built. And it's the kind of people who are on a team that other people want to join. So, thank you, Coach.
And I second Ms. Gormley's comment about student athletes, because to watch you perform and cheer is really a work of art. Your timing and your athleticity is just, you're just very athletic, and it's a pleasure to watch and hear you cheer everyone on, so thank you. Thanks.
Congratulations.
May I take one moment and just ask Athletic Director Larry Rooney to come to the table? Larry was appointed last summer, and Larry Rooney has hit the ground running. And as I said to the school committee, on behalf of the school system, our athletic program is in outstanding hands. And Larry Rooney has integrated himself into every part of life at Milton High School. I get emails from school committee members and residents and parents who say you're just everywhere. I get feedback from coaches that you're looking out for them, your response to parents, your outreach to parents or students who are looking to go parochial or private, talking about Milton High School and what we have to offer. I cannot publicly recognize and thank you enough, and really very proud of the appointment of you to the athletic director for the Milton Public Schools. What you have done and the tone you have set around athletics and the standard that you have and that you help all reach, I'm deeply appreciative, and I want to publicly recognize and thank you.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Gormley, for those kind words, and the school committee, and again, the Milton Public School community. This has been a great experience for me, stepping into Milton High School as the athletic director. I've always looked at sports as my classroom, that extra classroom outside of the academics, and some of the life lessons that our student athletes learn in sports on and off the court. And to get to know these student athletes here at Milton High School has been a great, great experience for me, and for me to be part of their lives, whether they're winning or losing or trying their best, has been a great experience for me as well. So thank you all for this opportunity. If I can just wrap up, as we look forward to spring sports, I'll give you a quick update of where we're at. Obviously, the weather's not cooperating, but we're hoping for some sunshine and some wind to dry out these fields and get our teams out of the gymnasium and onto the grass and out onto the field. Over the past few weeks, we've had over 423 spring student athletes sign up for over 11 different sports teams. In particular, we have 31 at girls tennis, 17 boys tennis, 53 softball, 35 rugby, 35 girls track, 45 boys track, 38 girls lacrosse, 35 boys lacrosse, 34 girls crew, 25 boys crew, and 62 baseball players. And those 423 athletes will be spread out over 11 programs and over 25 teams at the varsity, junior varsity, and freshman level. So again, it's a great commitment by these student athletes at the end of the school day to be playing out on our fields representing Milton High School. These numbers, I think, are up from the past couple years. I've looked deep into the files of my predecessor, Steve Traster, and it's great that we have this many numbers out there. And again, to Superintendent Gormley and Mr. Phelan, our coaches do a fantastic job. I think we're all looking forward to seeing these teams compete this coming spring. So thank you again for allowing our athletic teams tonight, myself, and certainly the student athletes to be here in front of you to recognize their success this past winter.
Thank you,
Larry, I'd just like to say one thing. Thanks for a great year, great winter season. I feel a little badly for you, though, because it looks like the standard is teams going deep into the playoffs. So it's going to be hard to top, but hang in there.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add one quick comment? One of the things that it's really been noticeable to me is the communication that you do. Sometimes to the point where I'm like, okay, this is the 4th email from Larry today about another student team. But it's wonderful, and that's what I hear a lot from parents. I know alumni parents who say, oh, I want to be kept on that email list, and I want to know about the games, and they want to go to the games when they get to the championship level. So it is fabulous, the communication that you do, and I've heard it from so many parents. So I just think that that's really, really important to acknowledge, and I really appreciate that. And I had another point, but I forget what it was. So thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Padera?
And just along with that, with the communication, I think you've done a really great job at reaching out to younger families who haven't, aren't at the high school level yet, but, it's the first year that I think I see a lot of younger kids at games, and not just playoff games, but like the opening football game. I saw so many young families there, and they had such a great time. It's a great thing to bring these younger families in early and see what we have to offer. As I said about the wrestling match too, my kids weren't the only young kids there. There were tons of young kids there, and that's a wonderful thing to see. And you've done a great job of communicating early with those younger families, the whole community. So, thank you for that, because it's hard to keep track of things. I think there's a rugby game this Friday, right?
There is a first rugby game, first spring game of for the season for any of the teams, 7 o'clock on Friday night here at Brooks Field against Lincoln Sudbury High School.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Larry.
Next, it's my distinct pleasure to invite to the table Jack Caljo. Jack, do you want to join us at the table? Welcome. You're a team until yourself. I am very, very proud, and you epitomize what one parent spoke tonight, working your entire career in the Milton Public Schools. Milton High School senior Jack Caljo has been named a finalist for the National Merit Scholarship Program, if I might. This honor is based on scores from his 2012 PSATs. Less than 1% of those who take the PSATs qualify as finalists. Jack will now be considered for one of 8,000 National Merit Scholarships, collectively worth nearly $35 million for academically talented students. Jack is an outstanding student who takes AP courses, and he is an integral part of the Milton High School debate team. He has presented his certificate by Principal James Jett, and I want to tell you, on behalf of every teacher who taught you, every student who sat next to you and you helped and helped you, and the whole community, we are very, very proud of your accomplishment and to be recognized nationally with this award. Some years we don't have a National Merit finalist, and you make all of us very, very proud, and we are very proud of your accomplishment. So I think the school committee might want to speak to you. And you have your proud parents in the audience tonight, too.
What's up, guys?
Would you like to say a few words?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind remarks. It's really a pleasure to be part of the Milton school system. And I think that really this is not an accomplishment that I should take credit for, but really the teachers of Milton High School. So.
And what are your plans?
Well, I'll be attending Northwestern University in the fall over in Chicago. And beyond that, hopefully achieving great things.
Do you know what you're majoring in?
I'm not sure. Maybe economics or political science. I'm really not sure at this point, though.
Great. Wonderful. It's just fine to not know, just asking. Mrs. Padilla?
I'd just like to say that the Midwest is a great choice. And I don't know if my husband's watching at home, but he's a Northwestern alum, so he would be saying it's even probably the best choice of schools. But that's fantastic, and I'm always excited when I hear students like even going outside the New England area, because there's some great schools out there, and it's always good to look outside that box, which has probably got you where you are.
Mr. Walker.
Well, congratulations. Anytime you're in the top 1%, that's a good thing, and that's a pretty elite group. So we're very proud of you, and we're sure that this is just the beginning of great things and great accomplishments. Nice job.
Thank you.
Jack might be able to share something else, another little secret with everyone. Jack is on the Life Smarts team.
Oh.
And so could you give the community and the school committee, rather than me telling the good news story, it's been put in print, but to hear you from your voice, tell us about the accomplishments of the team and what's happening.
So I guess the accomplishments of the team really started 3 years ago with Mr. Ehrenberg, when he recruited myself and a bunch of other really talented young students into the team. And when I was a sophomore, that was the first year I was on the team. It was the first year we won the state championship. We went to nationals, obviously didn't win, but we did pretty well. Then we did the same thing junior year, and this is my senior year. Mr. Ehrenberg's gone now, but Miss Michaels has continued the program kind of like in his stead. And I think it's kind of our duty for him, because he started the program to kind of do well at nationals, and we're going to shoot for, doing really well this year. I know that the top 8 teams from the last couple of years have gotten lots of scholarships, and everyone on the winning team last year got over $5,000 worth of scholarships and like basically technology like iPads, which is really awesome. So I think it's kind of a great opportunity for us. And this year at States we did really well. We were like tied. It's kind of like an academic competition, and we were tied with a bunch of other teams going into the last round, and then we pulled ahead at the last moment. So that was exciting in a nerdy way, I guess.
I said to Miss Michaels, we should have been there. We should have brought fan buses to that competition. She said there weren't any, there wasn't room.
No.
I don't want to do that.
And where are you going for nationals?
So we're going to Orlando this year, which is exciting. It's going to be at the end of April vacation and towards the beginning of the next school week.
One more reason for us to be proud of you.
Very, very exciting.
I just want to say, Jack, I think it's amazing that you've accomplished so much, but what I think would be most proud, and your mom and dad are in the crowd, and I remember your mom coming up to Pearson when you were at Pierce, but to recognize Mr. Ehrenberg, who's retired, shows that you were not only a very smart young man, but one of high character and very respectful, so that's a quality that will last with you forever as well, so well done.
The kind of person you are. So we're very, very proud. I think, I have a suspicion this might be the beginning of a very busy senior season for you, with lots of recognitions that you have well earned. And we couldn't be more proud, and you exemplify the best and of all of the students in the Milton Public Schools, just what we all work to attain. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite the Glover Site Council to the table. I'm going to ask Dr. Coxtis to make the introductions.
John's got a shield.
So Dr. Custis, perhaps if you want to sit over here with your team to start and make the introductions, that would be wonderful. Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the school committee for inviting us here tonight. We're very, very happy to be here, and I think I speak on behalf of the site council to say we're very excited to be here and to tell you a little bit about what's going on this year at the Glover School. So this evening, we have with us the site council members, Adrian Sullivan, parent, James Lapelsa, parent. Unfortunately, Rajan Pathak could not be here this evening. We have Mary McCarthy, grade 1 teacher. We have Margaret Turner, grade 2 teacher, and Brandon Powell, grade 3 teacher.
Thank you.
That is our site council. This evening, our agenda will consist of 4 items. We'd like to review the Glover School 2013 MCAS data observations. We'd like to review also the Glover School Improvement Plan, the Glover school-wide response to district observation, and then talk a little bit about next steps. Am I in an okay
You
spot?
know what, I think Mr. Phelan's going to seat you.
I will take the first part of this. I'd like to review the Glover School 2013 MCAS data observations, and then I'll hand it over to other members of our site council to review the rest of our agenda tonight. So, in terms of our data review for the 2013 MCAS, we're very proud that Glover School was a level 1 school last year. Our score on the overall performance was a 90, which meant that Glover School performed better than 90% of all the other schools. We had 3 subgroups that were recognized: our high-needs subgroups, our students with disabilities, and our white subgroup. With those subgroups all met target, and that helped to go into getting a level 1 rating for the Glover School. In our ELA performance over the past 4 years, we've had a trajectory that has been going up in terms of advanced and proficient, and one that has remained flat in needs improvement, warning, and failing. In math, we see the same thing with the trajectory going up, and then going a little bit more down in the needs improvement, warning, and failing. The science is a really good news story at Glover School. We've seen a very, very steep trajectory in terms of the improvement in the advanced and proficient, and the needs improvement and warning failing dropping down. In the school and the district comparison of all students, we see that in ELA and math, we've scored a little bit below the district but above the state. And in science, that good news story in terms of all students, that we've scored far above the district and the state in the science. High needs, which is our greatest number of our subgroup. In our high needs, in ELA, we've scored below in the district and just a little bit below in the state. In terms of the math of the high needs students, we've scored above in the district and above the state, and again in science, above the district and above the state. So on to the highlights. The highlights for this: the Glover School outperforms the state in math and ELA and outperforms the district and the state in science. In the high needs subcategory, Glover is well ahead of the state in math and science and only slightly below in ELA. Our science scores are far above the students, above the district and state, with 83% of the students scoring advanced and proficient. Those numbers in parentheses represent the district and the state in terms of advanced and proficient. So you see that the Glover science scores are very, very good. What are our challenges? Well, in looking at last year's data, we find that our challenges really surround some of our grade 4 scores more than 3 and 5. This isn't unlike in the district and the state. We see that grade 4 really is where we struggle most. The 2013 growth scores for grade 4, though, were lower than the district. And using this data, we've done a lot of focused work with our current grade 5 students. We've identified those students that need work and improvement, and we've really focused some work on that this year. In grade 4 math, We received only 52% of the open response points in math compared to 75% of the points in 2002. We saw, though, at the district and the state level, this also fell, but we're still not happy with that, and we still want to raise that up. In grade 4 ELA, we received 51% of open response points in ELA compared to 60% in 2012. And in the long comp, we received 71% of 20 possible points. This was down from 77% of the points in 2012. Again, not dramatically down, but enough that we really are concerned and put some real focused work on the long comp this year as well. When looking at this, we can identify there exists achievement gaps with 3 distinct groups. The biggest one with our students with disabilities. There is a 13.1 CPI gap in ELA and an 18.4 CPI gap in math. That's a very, very big gap. The African American Black students, we see a 12.0 CPI gap in ELA and a 16.8 CPI gap in math. And for low-income students, 7.4 gap in ELA and 9.5 gap in math. So what does this mean for our school improvement plan? A lot of what we want to work on, we've identified in the school improvement plan. And at this point, I'd like to show the areas of the school improvement plan, and then I'm going to hand this over to Janice Powell, who will talk a little bit more about this. So we're looking at the high academic achievement for all students, the excellence in the classroom, collaborative relationships and communications, respect for human differences, and risk-taking and innovation. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Janice. She's going to start talking about high academic achievement for all students.
Thank you. High academic achievement for all students is foremost in the mind of the entire Glover community. This district-wide core value has been broken down into 5 major components in the next 2 slides, and under each are new initiatives and ongoing initiatives that are happening at the Glover School. So we have curriculum, instruction, and assessment. This year, we're very fortunate to have a building-based curriculum coordinator, Miss Amy Gale. She's supportive, knowledgeable, and a wonderful addition to our staff. Reader's Workshop is presently implemented in all grade levels, and our classroom libraries have increased in size thanks to the MFE and the PTO. There are additional bins of books in every classroom. The next part is common assessment, and at Glover School we have a comprehensive assessment program that's been implemented at all grade levels. Students in grade 1 and 2 who are enrolled in the English Innovation Pathway are tested using the Fontes and Pinnell, and the French immersion students are administered the GB+. The Scholastic Reading Inventory is given to all students in grades 3 through 5, and all students are assessed in mathematics through the Everyday Math Unit assessments. We have the new STEM program, and that's going to be addressed a little bit later in our presentation. So if we can reduce student achievement gap. We feel it's very important to identify achievement gaps in subgroups of students. At the Glover School, at-risk students are being identified earlier. Increased targeted reading instruction is happening in grades 1 and 2 classrooms. Before school MCAS tutoring is occurring for those students in grade 3, 4, and 5 who scored in the needs to improve and warning category. Study Island practice is helping our students master standards in math specific to their grade level, and differentiated instruction in all areas of the curriculum is helping to reduce the achievement gap. Now we'll go to enrichment. We feel it's very important at Glover to offer enrichment opportunities to all our students. This year we had 2 teams of 5th graders prepare for the Future Problem Solvers Qualifying Bowl. Math League is available to our grade 3 and 5 students. The ACE program continues to enrich our artistically talented students. Boomwriter, which is an award-winning literacy website developed by a Glover parent, is allowing our students to collaborate with classmates to create and publish original stories. The Glover School Musical Theater, it's the best. It's under the direction of Colleen Martin, and it gives our children an opportunity to perform under the lights. We also have a 6-session before school MCAS initiative for students in grades 3, 4, and 5, and it's offered for students who would benefit from enrichment. The graph on the page here shows the enrollment of students in our before-school ELA sessions. We had 123 students invited to attend these sessions, and 72% of these students enrolled. This reflects how involved our Glover parents are with their children's academics. And the bottom photograph shows a few of our students at the before-school sessions. The next district core value is excellence in the classroom, and the Glover School has implemented initiatives that address engagement of all students, professional development for teachers, and the use of technology. Engaging all learners. The implementation of Reader's Workshop and the differentiation of instruction are just a few of the structures our staff uses to provide excellent learning opportunities to all students within our classroom. Instruction on best practices that promote student engagement is occurring in our faculty meetings, and delivery of services for students on IEP is moving towards a push-in model so more students are supported in the classroom setting. We also have a school-wide book swap, and this has created great book buzzes and lots of our avid readers are scooping up those books. For professional development, we have Reader's Workshop, and the offerings are highly attended. Many of our grade 3 and 5 staff members have attended professional development on 2 units that align with the Lucy Coughlin's curricula for Reader's Workshop, and there's also professional development with grade 1 and 2 teachers. At grade level meetings, Glover teachers analyze student data and strategize explicit ways of instruction. We've had Boomwriter professional development. And lastly, technology. Thanks to the MFE, there are smart boards in every classroom at the Glover School. Presently, we have 5 staff members who are tech, which is smart board, trained and certified. These teachers can now provide training to other teachers in our building. We currently have 35 Chromebooks and 30 iPads that allow our students wireless access and the use of a word processing program. We do robotics is occurring in grades 1 and 2, and the addition of an elementary technology specialist, Sarah Doherty, has helped our teachers develop and tailor specific technology lessons to support classroom instruction. And before we start the next slide, it's about my classroom. So let me just tell you a little bit first. My classroom with Ms. Coiter's grade 3 classroom has the privilege of being part of the pilot of the Park assessment. In May, we will be administering the online end-of-the-year ELA assessment, and the upcoming video will show how my students are using Chromebooks in the classroom so that they become familiar with this online assessment, and Ms. Doherty is instructing the students on how to drag and drop. To respond to the questions the student has to answer, they have to drop 3 responses into the drop box. So here we go.
What's nice is that we're still using the same passage. Over here on the side, we still have the passage that we're using. So that way, you can still scroll up and down to look in the passage. Over here is our next question. This question
Turn it up.
we're going to be dragging and dropping. We're not pressing something for multiple choice. Okay? So let me just show you how that would happen. So if you took your mouse, or you're using your little pad there, you would take one of the choices, click on it, and drag and drop it in. If you didn't want that choice, you would take it back out and put it in here.
Sorry about the volume on that.
So we heard it great.
Next, we're going to hand this over to Adrian Sullivan to talk a little bit about collaborative writing.
So another part of our school improvement plan is the collaborative relationships and communication process. And so we meet monthly, and it's really great to have Dr. Custis on board. She started in July and hasn't stopped since, so she's a fantastic addition to Glover. And also having a first grade, second, and third grade teacher, we really are seeing full blooming work from the curriculum coordinators all the way to all of your budget work that you do, and do it tirelessly. You see it in action, and you see it in action here at Glover. So we do have a variety of ways of communicating to parents, the community, to teachers, to students, and it's a holistic approach at Glover. And one way is the Edline website. It's continuously being updated. You also find the site council meeting notes on there as well. Anybody that's walked the halls of Glover knows from 7 in the morning to sometimes 7 o'clock at night, the place is hopping. So there's always somebody using the building, and they have to pass through the hallways, and you see the community news bulletin board. Dr. Custis has done monthly newsletters with, coming from her, but also the PTO also does monthly newsletters as well, chock full of information. There are bi-monthly principal coffees. Some things that have already been discussed are the bully prevention curriculum, park information night, and during the principal coffees. So what you saw occurring is, how are these kids going to use this technology to actually take the park test, and what does that mean when we're used to pen and paper with the MCAS? So it's challenging and exciting at the same time. And also the PTO is a very robust PTO at Glover. We fail to even try to mention all the names because we won't get everybody, so we don't want to offend anybody by not mentioning everybody's names. But the PTO sponsors MCAS Data Night, Weatherbug Night, and various other nights during the school year. Another way of providing connections with curriculum and assessment awareness is increased parent and guardian involvement. Glover is a level 1 school, and the parent involvement reflects that as well. There's Math League that occurs with 3rd and 5th grade every Friday morning. The kids can actually come in and do those continental math questions. I'm sure you've seen a couple of them in the superintendent's blogs. And at 7:30 in the morning, those are brain teasers, and especially if you're an adult without coffee, but the 3rd graders seem to get that great. Math games are occurring in the classroom. Meet the Artist is a great program with artists. There's major artists that it starts in kindergarten, goes all the way up to 4th grade now, I believe, and the children learn about artists and their lives and their work. Mystery reader. Some classrooms have the option of having a mystery reader, and that causes all kinds of excitement because it creates a buzz during the day. The mystery reader, before they come in, they have to have the five breadcrumbs. So who's going to be the mystery reader of the day? And most of the time, the kids do guess that, and it's a great way to end the week for them. Junior Achievement in a Day. Jimmy Saplessa is the spearhead for that, and so from grades 2 to 5 at the end of May. Glover does Junior Achievement for a Day. Becky can attest to all the good work that goes on during that. And obviously, there's a lot of Glover community events. And recently, the science fair was just reinstituted, so that was a great success as well. So how are we supporting and appreciating parent involvement in community events? The Grade 5 Service Project. This year, it's birthday parties for homeless children. There's kindergarten play dates. So if you're new to the Glover community, you're invited to the kindergarten play dates in the spring. The Glover Social is the largest fundraiser in the fall. There's also community service projects. You'll find the various bins of things such as, shoe donations and cradles to crayons and the holiday gift collection. There's always something going on in that front hallway. Turkey trot, Coach Jones brought that in, and we haven't seen Mrs. Doyle in the turkey costume lately, but we have pictures to prove it. So it's great to watch the kids, the turkey trot right before Thanksgiving, run around and chase the turkey. There's also the lantern walk. We are so blessed to have Turner's Pond right in our backyard. There's also the skating party that parents have organized, and that this year was also in collaboration with Tucker School as well. And another part of our school improvement plan is the respect for human differences. And this year, we've done the implementation of the bullying law and curriculum that was done in the fall. There's also the School Diversity Committee with the initiative to increase parent and guardian participation. There's the optional One Book, One School summer initiative. And there's the update to Glover Goes Global to reflect the present family. And you'll see the pictures every year. The students get to say where their ancestry comes from, and they get to put it up on the wall at Glover in the hallway.
And this year, just to say, we also asked them to say, how do you say welcome, where you come from? So that's what you're seeing right there, are all the ways that we say welcome from where all of our families come from. And that's what I'm talking this year.
For risk-taking and innovation, you don't really need to look too far than what the teachers are actually doing in the classroom. The enthusiasm and the commitment of every teacher in every classroom is overwhelming. And you see how they take the specialized program that's available and the use of the data to support targeted instruction, and Mary Ann Pegg will be talking about that shortly. We have student clubs and programs, Math League, and Future Problem Solvers, the research-based best practices. We see readers' workshops in every classroom, and the children are picking out the just right book for them to encourage the reading and keep the reading going for them, and just finding their comfort level for reading, but also finding a way to challenge themselves. And I will turn that over to Nick.
Okay. With closing the achievement gap is one of the many topics that we did cover at School Site Council, closing achievement gap, early literacy in science and STEM. To close the achievement gap, one of the things we have before school MCAS support, 6 weeks that begin in January, offered to boys and girls in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, up to 2 times per week. Sarah McNeil covers the 3rd grade, Amanda LaForte is the 4th grade, and Sarah Willis is the 5th grade. We've increased formative assessment 3 times per year. We do the Fontes and Pinnell, which is a reading assessment in grades 1 and 2 in English, and the French grades in 1 and 2 do the GB Plus from Canada. It's comparable to the English Fontes and Pinnell. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades take the SRA Scholastic Reading Inventory. School-wide data analysis drives instruction for the best practice. The grade level facilitators work on math analysis along with curriculum coordinator Amy Gale. Low scores on unit assessment show us where we need to focus and who needs to provide more support. One of the ways we identify candidates for before school through the before school MCAS support is through the math assessment test when the teams get together and look at the grades.
Early literacy this year is the first year that across the district, all 1st and 2nd grade teachers are using the Fontes and Pinnell in the English program to assess the children where they are at benchmark. And if you can look at the graph, it's really exciting. In September, 42% of the children were proficient and 58% were not proficient. And then a shout out to all those 1st graders, 13%, 87, not 13%, 87%, I got a little worried there. 87% are proficient, and 13% are still working to meet that benchmark. The wonderful thing about the Fontes and Pinnell, to use it properly, it is truly to direct the teacher's teaching. So you look at each individual child's assessment, you find the areas that they're weak in, and your instruction is driven by that. I think that's why you can see the gap closing so well. It also gives all children the opportunity to be reading books that they're capable of reading. So they're not sitting there all reading the same book, some being not challenged and others being too challenged. So everybody is a reader at their own reading level. The children that are not meeting the benchmark receive services from our reading specialist, Gina Kassler, 5 times per week, which also helps to support the children. And she also uses the Fontes and Pinnell as her driving instruction. If you move on to the second grade obviously is measuring the current second grade class. It's a different group of children. And you can see that the gap at the beginning of September for second graders is smaller in terms of the children that are not proficient. Again, the children in second grade currently received reading support if they were not at benchmark. So it's nice to see that 85% of the children were proficient, and now in March, 96% of the children. So the gap just keeps getting smaller. Those children also not reading the benchmark receive reading support from Gina Kassler as well, 2 to 5 times per week.
All right, with the French program, grade 1, they have the 36% non-proficient and 64% proficient. And with the early literacy program and the French program, the term 1 in French, the teachers do running records on their own children and finding out where the strengths and where the weaknesses are. So the first half of the year, the teacher keeps running records on each student. The second half of the year, they administer the GB+, the French reading program, assessment program, comparable to Fontes and Pinnell. And they also receive support from Kate Laval, the reading support in the French program. And you can see as they go to the second half of first grade that their proficiency has increased. And we need to remember, they're reading in French. So that's, to me, that's amazing that the progress they do make. But the teachers have the phonics programs that they have that work with them. And as I said, the support from Kate Laval. And in second grade, they start off with the G&B testing, the assessment, similar, as I said, to the Fontes and Pinnell. And both first and second grade teachers receive the support from Kate Laval throughout the year, and 2 to 5 times during the week, depending on their need. And you can see the big growth from non-proficient to proficient in the second grade, second term, because that's through the hard work of the students and the teachers and the reading support that they're receiving during the week from Kate Laval.
Ada Rosemarin is the early childhood kindergarten person that works closely with the kindergarten team. And this year, through professional development, they are working on teaching strategies goals assessment, which I just happened to take a peek at it, and it's amazing, all the assessment that they're going to be doing on our K students. That is something that's going to be implemented next year. They have meetings with her several times during the year, and Carolyn Brandy is the lead teacher that then meets with Ada Rosemarin once per month in regards to Reader's Workshop, literacy and assessment, data, concerns that the K team may have, and she brings that back to Ada and then shares that information with the class, with the other class teachers. The Reader's Workshop has been really exciting for the first and second grade. Last year, we were beginning it. This year, we're really into it, like the full-blown excitement of it all. It is just so exciting to see these children loving to read. We're not all, if you can think back, and I'm not dating anyone, but if you can think back, let's all open our books, let's all turn to page 2, let's kind of round robin read. You walk into a first or second grade classroom, and there are children scattered around the class, each reading from their own books, chosen with guidance. The comprehension that they're able to do with that. We have had great support this year from Martha Winokur, who truly, from my experience, has been an expert in the Reader's Workshop model. She has coached us. She has been in the classroom. She has been available for professional development. She's an email away. If you're stuck on, I need a book for a particular child, you get an email with a list of books. The Reader's Workshop for the struggling student is that they don't feel like the struggling student because they have that book that they can truly read and they can read it fluently. As teachers, I think I can speak to the fact that it was an overwhelming endeavor when we first began, but the growth that we have seen in their reading, in the love of reading, and in truly reading for meaning. And so that has just been very exciting for all of us. The district-wide, I could have went on for Reader's Workshop, sorry. The district-wide book donation that Superintendent Gormley began has really, I think as somebody else referenced, has really trickled down right into the classrooms. I know in Peg Turner's class, children are saying, gee, I have books from a collection of an author, I'll bring those in to share. In my class, we're doing something called Bring a Book, Take a Book, so we have a bin of books that children just donate, and if you bring a book in, you can take a book home. So each day, children are just borrowing from classroom libraries. That really kind of caught fire when they realized how many books that they had at home that were just sitting there that could have been in the hands of other people. So that has been great as well. The PTO, again, just continues to support us in all ways. And the cultural events so far this year that tied to literacy was a presentation of Harriet Tubman, Hercules, and we met the book author Jarrett Crows, excuse me on pronouncing his name. In first grade, I'd say just call it Jarrett K. And it was great too because he brought his book with him that sold out at the book fair. Again, just that hands-on experience for children and the excitement that is really happening with reading at Glover School.
So we're going to hand this over to Mr. Slickhouse, who's going to talk a little bit about what's going on in science and STEM.
Thank you. So we're really excited this year to have a weather bug station installed on the roof of Glover, in part from a $7,000 grant from the Blue Hills Bank. And the software is available so we can get data from it, as well as we'll talk about later about meteorologist Barry Burbank coming to visit, and he can have access to that same data that's on top of coming in from Glover. We do robotics. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's really a neat thing with first and second grade STEM students building and coding their own robots with Legos that move and operate, and really exciting to see that. This year we participated in the district-wide Hour of Code. The science fair, which we haven't had in a couple years, was very well attended by all grade levels, and it was almost overwhelming how many students there were. There wasn't enough time to actually go around and see all of the presentations, which maybe next year we do more than one, but it was very well attended, which is great. Museum of Science grade level presentations. I have a fourth grader and a kindergartner, and my fourth grader raved about having somebody from the Museum of Science come in and looking at how to build pressure in a bottle and shoot things across the room, and he actually learned something while doing something fun, which was great. The meteorologist Barry Burbank came and visited, and if you saw the broadcast, he was also showed it on a live, he mentioned us and showed a little clip on a live feed. But the students got to hear about what a meteorologist does and understanding science and tying that in was great. At the very beginning of the presentation, you saw a picture of some ducks, ducklings with the mother duck. That, for those of you who haven't been to the outdoor classroom, I'm not sure how many other facilities have a unique square lock of land inside of a building, but it serves as a very unique opportunity for certain things, and we're not sure if the duck will come back and lay her eggs in our open space without access, but it serves for a great opportunity for the kids to take advantage of that. And one of the things that we have done upcoming is we have a committee that is designed to try to build a program and more curriculum around using that activity, using the classrooms for more activities. And then finally, the next steps, obviously we talked a little bit about identifying and reducing the achievement gap, and we're going to continue to work on that. Continuing the Readers Workshop, which both faculty as well as parents are very excited about. The STEM focus, the code.org and providing additional support and additional code.org for 3rd and 4th graders. We'll continue Science from Scientists for grade 5, as well as exploring the creation of our first Lego League team for the 4th and 5th grade students to compete outside of Glover as well.
Thank you. As you can see, it's been my privilege this year to work with this fabulous site council. I couldn't ask for better people to work with. So I want to thank tonight the opportunity to have them be here and present all of this. They have been fabulous. So we'll open it up for any questions.
John's going to get the lights for you. Sheila, maybe you want to pull up a chair next to Adrian.
Mr. Zulus?
Thank you for what I thought was a very focused and informative presentation, and it really shows what appears to be a very impressive environment that you all have created at Glover. A couple of questions. One is the grade 4 challenges. This is something that we've seen consistently in the other schools, and as someone who's not an expert in education, my question is, number one, is it something to be concerned about, and then if it is, what might we do to address it?
Well, I think that any time that we see the scores being depressed, we're going to look at that and say, why is this happening? Is it something that's particular to Glover? Is it something that's particular to the district? Is it something that is going on around the state? And I've spoken with Amy Gale, our curriculum coordinator, who's also looked at this very closely. And one thing that she has identified is that some of the standards that have changed have been tested, and that are new standards that we have been focusing on haven't been in the test. So some of those things have changed so that we're not seeing what we're teaching being assessed in the test.
So there's a lag?
That's one, yes. I think that's one big problem right there.
Okay, okay.
And I think what Amy identified last year also was in the long comp, where we lost a lot of points. That was, again, that was statewide.
Okay.
And part of that was the question itself might not have been something that students were really familiar with, so that they had practiced how to write a long comp in one kind of genre, and then they had something that was very different, so they were not adept at that.
Okay, okay. And then the other question is on science. I mean, the scores and the efforts and the performance seem so outstanding in science. So the question there is, what's working, and what can be replicated? Yeah.
Right, and I think we need to look very closely. We do have, a grade 5 science teacher who's very, very strong, who's actually going to present at the National Teachers of Science, their conference that's coming up very soon. So I think that, one, she does a very, very good job, a very strong job at that. But whatever it is, as I said, we'd like to bottle it.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Padilla.
I just wanted to highlight a couple things, just having some experience with some of the things, especially that Adrian mentioned. But First of all, you mentioned the assessments, some of the assessments you're doing this year, and gave us examples of, testing before, testing after, and it's just incredible. Again, I think Tucker had done the same thing, and those literacy tests, it's just amazing how much improvement students are making from September until the spring. But I'm just wondering, some of the SRI, had there been testing with the grades 3, especially I'm thinking of Mr. Zulis' question with grade 4, if we can identify problems before we get to the next round of MCAS. Has there been any testing and looking at anything for those higher grades?
In terms of, are you asking if we're...
Was it the Scholastic?
The SRI is
Yeah.
in grades 3 through 5?
Yes.
So are we looking at those in the very beginning of the year? Yes, that's exactly what we did starting in the beginning of the year, identifying which students right away need some help and then focusing on that. So the teachers will be they get together in grade level meetings and look at that very, very closely. But identifying not just overall, but which students, what's going on with those students. Is it the instruction, or is there something else going on? So we really want to look at the whole child. So I want to emphasize that it's not just the assessments, but it's going deeper.
Right.
Who are our children? What is happening with them? What can we do to remedy that? One is focused instruction by identifying where are they not performing. The other might be as simple as they're not coming in eating breakfast. So making sure that we identify those students. We identified one student in Mrs. McCarthy's class this year that was having a very difficult time, couldn't see, flunked the eye test twice, but didn't have glasses. So working with Mrs. McCarthy and our wonderful nurse LeBlanc, she was able to identify resources within the community that helped get this child glasses. What a difference. So it is the assessments, yes, but then it's looking at each child and figuring out what each child needs.
I think that's great. But just a follow-up of that, so they were tested, everyone was tested at the beginning of the year, is that what you're saying? For the grades
Fontes and
3?
Pinnell, grades 1 and 2,
And then-
SRI, grades 3, 4, and 5.
And are they tested then at the end of the year to see if they've made progress?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's great. And then just a couple of the things. The book swap, I don't know who came up with that idea, but it was fantastic. I think that the kids really got excited about sharing their favorite books and bringing them in because they didn't really necessarily read them anymore, but they wanted to share them, and they got really excited about swapping books. I think that was an excellent way. We've had other donations and things like that, which are fantastic, but the book swap, I think the kids got really excited about. And the science fair you had mentioned, that place was packed. I think, was it Bernadette Moonen that helped organize that as well as Dr. Cuxis? And I think that they almost talked about having to separate the grades because it was so packed. I mean, there was no room to move. It was one of the most popular nights that I've seen at Glover, so.
Followed that up with the Survey Monkey survey,
Yeah.
and we found that that was one thing that came through. We loved it, but we didn't get enough time. Could we separate it into 2 nights? 84% of the parents rated it highest. 86% of the parents said we would definitely be back next year. So we felt that was pretty strong.
Great. And then 2 last things. I also, Jarek Krasoska, I believe that's how you say his name, was a great presentation. I think especially for kids, again, with a love of reading, that they could see careers that you could have just because that he made a big focus of he loved to read, he loved to draw, and that's how he got into his field. So I think always bringing those kind of people in to show how they got started was excellent. And then I hate to break this to you, Dr. Cuxis, but it's really the principal that's supposed to wear the turkey costume. You could just ask Coach Jones, and I think we have pictures of Mrs. Nephew from years past, or so that might be you next year.
We won't know who's in that turkey costume, but maybe I won't be around.
But thank you very much.
I do.
Mr. Walker?
So thanks for that presentation. It seems like there are quite a few exciting things going on, and all of you are to be commended for that. I have a few questions on the data. In ELA and math, the trend line isn't going in the direction I think we would like. That is to say that if you look at the difference between 12 and 13, the number of needs improvement and warning, if you take those two together, has gone up. Similarly in math, quite a bit. Why is that? I know that we now have this assessment software that we're using, so hopefully we have the data that we need, but why do you see that occurring, and more importantly, what are we doing about it?
In terms of between 2012 and 2013,
Yeah.
in the math, you're right, in all of grades 3 through 5, we saw an increase in the needs improvement from 15 to 21%.
Correct.
And you are absolutely correct in that. And I'd have to break it out, and I think, again, we saw a lot of the math drop in grade 4. We're looking at that and trying to figure out why did that happen. So Study Island is one way that we're looking at for the children after school and at night, but also mostly just each grade level meetings, looking at which of the students that aren't achieving and how do we get to those students that are. So we also now have a teacher facilitator who will be focusing specifically on grades 3 through 5 math. They've just started their job, so that's something that's been added in, that they'll look at all the data and then say exactly where do we need to put more work in. So I think that is definitely a work in progress. We started focusing on all of that this year by looking at it in grade level meetings and specific targeted instruction for those students.
Are we at the point where we have individualized action plans for each student?
We have, in terms of each student that had needs improvement or warning for math or...
Right, and what I might offer as a best practice, at Pierce, they talked about even some of the students that were just in the proficient category, making sure that those students don't drop back.
And that's something...
Those three groups.
Absolutely, but that's something that we focused on for ELA for our 6-week session. So in terms of our ELA, we've just completed a 6-week session in ELA for grades 3 through 5 students. So there were 2 groups of those students. One group met twice a week, and those were the students that were needs improvement and warning, and we knew we had to push up. But then there was a second group of students that we met once a week, and those were the students that might have been right on the edge and that we wanted to make sure didn't fall. So that was more of an enrichment, even though you might have been scoring a proficient or even an advanced, but we noticed that the growth wasn't as much. Those were the students that we invited in to give a little push. We'll be doing the exact same thing for the math, before the math MCAS.
And do we know yet what impact that had? Have we done an assessment to determine that?
In terms of the ELA, this was the first year that, obviously, that I've done it, but we did that 6 week. We won't know until we get the scores back, our MCAS scores.
Well, I thought we had software that could tell us that more quickly. In the interim, no? Okay, moving on. Just as a comparison, I think the thing that I'm most interested in for comparison purposes is how students are performing against their peers in the same classroom and how students are performing in terms of the district. The state information is helpful, but perhaps we're victims of our own success at this point, but the state information is not that helpful. So talking about the achievement gaps that you identified, this is slide 13, do we know, it's hard to evaluate, and I agree with you, you said these are pretty large gaps, I agree, but it's hard to know whether, again, what the trend is. So do we have data for, say, the last 3 years? How are students with disabilities, African American, Black, and low-income students doing over time? Are we closing the gap? Is the gap getting larger? What do you see there?
I'll be honest, this year's here. I have not done the past few years, but that is something that absolutely I'll be doing. We looked at that in November as a district, and we looked at those gaps. We looked at those very closely then, but we did that district-wide. But in terms of Glover, absolutely, we'll be looking at that.
I'd be interested in that information. And then last question. I was curious on the early literacy slides. Actually, I have a question on the French. In grade 1, the number not proficient was 36% at the beginning of the term, or term 1 and then term 2, that dropped to 27%, which was great work. I was surprised that then in term 1, grade 2, that the number not proficient, or percentage not proficient, was a little higher, 39%, since I was assuming that those were students who had gone through grade 1 and are now in grade 2. So I would think the proficiency or not proficient percentage would be lower, not higher. Any thoughts on that?
During the summer, I mean, this is when they first came back to school.
So,
And I think that, and there is a typical regression, slide a bit.
so is that it could be the case that although they ended the term with only a 27% not proficient, it goes back up to 39% by the time they come back? Okay.
Could I just add a little to
Yeah.
that? That the actual standard is higher when you enter second grade as opposed to when you leave first grade. So the level of reading expectation is at a higher level just entering into the grade. And in specific to the French literacy assessments, the first grade 1 is a running record, as Peg pointed out, and then they use their assessment at the end of grade 1. And then they begin to measure not only decoding and fluency, but also comprehension. So they're adding a level of difficulty in terms of the aspect of the assessment. So it's really not a perfect apples-to-apples comparison. But in essence, like in the English, the level of reading goes up. As soon as you walk in the door in second grade, your K level that you're reading at the end of your first grade year is now all of a sudden expected to be at a higher level just by the nature of the grade level. So there is a level of increase of rigor expected in the assessment package that we use.
I assumed that, but I would think that in general, we would want that trend to be ticking downwards, not upward. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Kelly?
Thank you very much for this presentation. It sounds like wonderful things are happening at Glover. I appreciate all the questions that have been asked thus far, because some of those were on my list. If someone could speak to Hour of Code Day, I am totally ignorant, and I'd love to know what that is.
That was, and I think it was a statewide, not a national, initiative that had all the students going into the lab and doing an exercise that showed them, demonstrated to them how easy it was to code. So they got on the computers, and there was a website where they could go, and it would say, here's what you do to code. Now, we're talking from the littlest up to 5th grade. Do this, hit these two. And then they were actually able to move something and see what, by their doing those formulas, how that actually resulted in like a little bunny jumping across the screen or something like that. I did it, and I thought, this is what they're talking about? And here I am, 50-something, and this is the first coding I've done. And we saw the same type of real enthusiasm with the children.
That's very exciting.
It was very exciting. And Bernadette Moonen really pushed that. She was fabulous and really got it. And then our tech specialist really took the ball and ran with that.
That's terrific. That's great. And then one more question. The SRI assessments for grades 3 through 5, are those individual sort of, I'm trying to understand how our progression of assessment goes from grade 1 through grade 5. So if someone can try and explain that to me, I'd appreciate it.
Fontes and Pinnell is a grades 1 and 2 assessment. Again, what Mr. Phelan talked about in terms of decoding, comprehension, fluency. Once they get to grades 3, 4, and 5, it looks a little bit different. So they use the assessment, which is the Scholastic Reading Inventory, and these are formative assessments, so that they take place during the school year so that you can see the movement of students.
Right, and so to that point, I think we've talked about this, and hopefully in a future meeting before the end of the year, we'll get to this. I think what would be great to see, it's great to see the progress that happened here in graph form from the beginning of the year till now, or whenever these tests were taken in March. But it would be great also to see what's happening at 3 through 5, so that we sort of see the context by individual school, by the entire district. I think that is sort of what we've been working towards. in my mind, some of the movement in the grades 1 and 2 is really part of all the initiatives that are going on from our advancement budget in terms of the reading support, the software, et cetera. So it's great to see how that movement actually helps kids in sort of a graph form. So it's fabulous. Thank you.
And I can speak just a little bit more to that. Did you want to say something, Mr. Van? Sorry.
We do have the literacy coordinators coming out to meet with the school committee. They were potentially going to come out next week, but they will be coming out in a meeting in May to describe a lot of what was described at each of our school site council presentations, which is how the data is driving the instruction, especially around early literacy. They will speak to the Fontes and Pinnell that choose for grades 1 and 2 and the work that was demonstrated tonight, and also the SRI, which actually goes up through grade 7, where we test students. And for those students who may be struggling readers, we actually do a Fontes and Pinnell for those folks, because that's a more detailed assessment to get at what the reading looks like and what we need to do to support those readers. So they will present that material at a future meeting.
Working on it now.
I was just going to add a little bit to that piece, because the SRI really gets to comprehension, wearing my teacher's hat. So it, it's a close activity where the students read a paragraph and there are missing words, and they have to use the comprehension skills that they have by inferring and choose vocabulary words that would best fit into the passage. Whereas the Fontes and Pinnell is an assessment that really helps you identify the reading level of each child, so their guided reading level. So they were talking about leveled readers and just right books, and that's exactly where that helps drive instruction and what the needs are of the child. So they're different assessments. They don't tell you necessarily a reading level at 3, 4, and 5, but they certainly can inform a lot of work.
That's interesting, because you talk about comprehension, right, which obviously is part of ELA, but then the whole writing component. Do we have consistent assessments across sort of how we write that we utilize as well? And is there some sort of assessment that you do at the beginning of the year and somewhere in the middle?
Not necessarily. The 3, 4, 5 piece of Writers' Workshop, which will be part of the implementation of some of the work we're doing in ELA next year. The focus this year was on the reading and the comprehension and the early literacy skills that we were focusing on. Writing is absolutely a need that we need to address, not only in the assessing of writing, but the instruction of writing and giving professional development to teachers and talking about how we're going to organize that work so we're all approaching it in a unified way. But that is work that's on, that will be upcoming in the next school year. So.
And the coordinators will address that in their presentation.
Great, thank you.
So just in closing, I would like to say that thank you again, as everyone else has said, for this great presentation. And just comment on one thing that I heard said, I think it was you, Sar, who said that students actually learn something while having fun. And I think through all of your slides and your presentations, I think that happens a lot more than you would maybe give yourselves credit for. I think that so much of what kids do every day at the Glover School is enjoy themselves and learn through all these opportunities that you present to them, and I think it's great news.
Thank you. And I just want to thank all of you for coming, and on behalf of the Site Council, it is a wonderful way for the school committee and the community to get a lens into the Glover School. And so we have the privilege of going in and out of the schools and talking to all of you, but you make it come alive for the whole town. And for the work you do on the Site Council. Obviously, you own this presentation, and you know every facet of the Glover. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite to the table our Food Service Director, Jackie Morgan, for her annual presentation.
Does anybody want this? I've already had 2.
Sure.
Oh.
Do you want
He's going to have 3.
That would be my 3rd. So. Are they really? All right.
Good night, thank you.
That'll get us through executive session.
He's got a record.
Welcome, Jackie.
Thanks for the snacks.
Jackie. Yes.
Mrs. Morgan, while we're waiting, why don't you describe the snack that you brought us and tell us a little bit about it?
Love to. Health and Wellness knows this very well. What you're drinking right now is what we offer every day as one of our 17 choices at Milton High School. It's our yogurt and fruit smoothie, and that is served as a part of a full meal to the students at Milton High. So tonight it's half Stonyfield organic yogurt and half USDA strawberries.
Oh.
Let me go get another one.
Thank
While
you.
John's getting ready, we just got word 2 days ago that I just received a $2,000 grant to buy a Vitamix heavy-duty machine for the Pierce Middle School.
Oh,
And we're going to start to serve these in the spring at breakfast.
Wonderful.
Just lighting up the room wherever you go.
I'm proud to, as we introduce Jackie Morgan could probably speak to 100 topics tonight and is involved in 100 million different aspects of the Milton Public Schools.
I don't think that's connected to that machine.
Should I try?
Thank you, Jackie.
This is the one that's connected.
Is that Chief Wells in the back?
It is.
He was one of the judges.
Where's his hat?
That's at the end.
He's not in uniform.
So thanks for having me here. This is just our annual update, and one of the great things that we've been able to do with the Milton School Food Service is tap on to professional development that you, the school committee, hold so dearly. The day before school starts, we all come to a meeting with Superintendent Gormley, and we go over a lot of, important information. But what that does is it allows me a good 2 or 3 hour gap of time that all my staff are available, all at the same time, all at the same place. So we've been working with this opportunity, doing some training, professional training. So what we did last year is we worked with our fire chief, John Grant, who was absolutely so helpful, and he had Fallon Ambulance donate for free full CPR and full choke saving to all 30 food service employees. So as you can see there, we had the full body doubles. We had 4 instructors to 30 people, which were huge numbers. And each one of the 30 people in food service are fully certified with CPR and choke saving. So the Board of Health was very appreciative to that. Most of the time, we're behind the counters, but sometimes children choke while they're in the serving line because they're eating in line because they're so hungry. So it's a nice thing to have everybody certified. So that was a great training we could offer to them. We are, once again, I think it's our 6th or 7th year with Farm to School. I actually worked with Nancy Mern. This year, we've spent over $10,000 in local produce for the school nutrition program, so pretty excited about that.
Wow, that's great.
Yes. Helping farmers, helping students, much fresher products, and it actually helps lower the cost of the produce as well. And we have a company this year who actually was out doing all the gathering for me. Instead of me ordering from Company A and Company B and Company C, FoodX would go around and collect from all the farmers and give us one delivery with one invoice, so that was very helpful this year. One of the things I wanted to talk about this year was children with allergies, because I know some parents watch this recorded tape on the website, that we have a lot of students with allergies, and that's just part of our new world. And I try to let every parent know that I'm always available for a full one-on-one meeting. I always think to myself, what would it be like to send your kindergartner or your first grader into a school of 4 or 5, Cunningham Collie-Cott, 1,200 children with a life-threatening allergy that could be anaphylactic or could be even, a different alternative of hives. So what I really try to be working with is the nurses who notifies food service if a student has an allergy. And that is through USDA. There has to be a doctor's note on file saying that the child has an allergy. So that's where it starts. And we are computerized in all of our kitchens. So we have a computerized cash register. So when little Jackie Morgan puts her name or states her name, and Jackie might be allergic to peanuts, it will pop up that that child has a peanut allergy. And the cashier can go no further but to read it and accept that pop-up. And that allergy stays with the child from kindergarten to grade 12, which is what's really helpful with our point-of-sale system. It goes from K to 12. And we use the student's unique ID number, so it never changes no matter what building they go to. So even if they were at Collie-Cott and they got transferred to Cunningham, everything would stay with them, which is a real help for our allergies. I just had I've had 2 mothers this year that children are allergic to corn, which is not even one of the 8 allergens. So allergies are changing, always changing. Our 8 allergens are pretty well specified on our labels. But I've had parents whose children were allergic to kiwi. I've had parents whose children were allergic to paprika. It's amazing what children have been found to be allergic to. So I just want them to know that we do have one-on-one meetings available with me. We go in, we climb through the freezer, we climb through the refrigerators, we read the labels, and it's very informative. And also, we have gluten-free meals available every day this year. Once again, that starts with the doctor. A doctor's note comes into the nurse, and we have a variety of meals that the children will sign up in homeroom, and those parents know that they can eat a safe gluten-free meal. Some of the new things that we did this year, I'd like to always do new things, keep it exciting. We have a fresh deli bar at our high school, which is made to order, thin and trim, old neighborhood cold cuts, and I noticed that the participation was starting to sink just a little. And one of the conferences I went to, we had lunch on your own, so I walked down the street to Cozy's. I'd never heard of it. And I stood there and I watched for like 45 minutes people come in and have salads made to order. And I kept saying to myself, how can I do that and get children through the line and do, 60 of them in 8 minutes? So we watched and I watched and I watched. And this year at the high school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we now have a fresh salad toss, trying to promote dark leafy greens, so our salads usually spinach and mesclun or romaine, and it's become very popular. I've actually even noticed even more teachers are participating as well as more students, so that's really exciting. Next year, we are going out and doing a legal Inspector General approved bid for chicken in the state of Massachusetts. We've never done that before. We've always just had our prices assigned to us. So I was one of 4 food service directors who worked on the state bid. And Milton Schools is moving away from chopped and formed chicken, and we're moving towards whole muscle chicken. So I have set aside $25,000 of our government entitlement to whole muscle products next year, which we're very excited about. I've been doing a lot of taste tests with the students, and the other day at the high school, I brought out a whole muscle buffalo tender. It's like I was giving out chocolate cake. They were so excited. And then the next day, Mrs. Morgan, when are you having that? When are you having that? So we're very excited that that's going to be happening. And then we have here, my initials, I apologize, DOD is Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And last year, I was part of a pilot with only 12 other school systems in Massachusetts that partnered with the Department of Defense to use our government entitlement dollars for fresh produce. And it worked very well. We had some bumps in the road. And this year, I was lucky enough to be part of it again, and Milton School Food Service has been able to put $11,200 of our government entitlement dollars towards produce. So that's coming in, and the quality is absolutely beautiful. As you know, I work with interns from Framingham State University now. That's my alma mater. And this year we have 3 students teaching in the schools in this spring semester. Last year I had 2 in the fall. And these 3 young ladies said to me, we'd love to do a variety of elementary, some middle, some high school. And at the same time, our trainer, Patty, had said to me, I would love to teach the athletes how to eat before a game, how to hydrate, and how to eat after a game. And so her and I worked together with Larry Rooney and our 3 interns. And this, I gotta keep saying, this was voluntary after school on a Monday, and Mr. Phelan was after vacation. So I had a lot of things going against me. And what we did 2 weeks before it, we met with all the captains, and we tried to ask them what they thought they were supposed to do. What do you think you're supposed to eat? And what we did with them is we taught them so many things that they thought they were doing right was wrong. Mm-hmm. And we asked them if they could help us bring their co-athletes to this training. And we had 350 students at 2:30 in the afternoon come voluntary and learn about what to eat before we'd eat after. The girl over on the left, her name is Tina White, and she's holding up 22 packages of sugar, and those were taped to a Gatorade bottle. Wow. To show the students that this really isn't what you're supposed to be putting in your body unless you've just done the equivalents of a marathon. So I think that was the biggest wow moment for the students. They were all like, that's what I put, oh my goodness. We also had trail mix, we had sun butter and jelly sandwiches. Our Dean's Food donated chocolate milk to teach them that you have chocolate milk after you exercise, and string cheese. So it was really, really well attended, and a huge thank you to the athletic department for helping with that. Breakfast is my huge passion. I just heard the principal from Glover School say that they found out one of the quick identifying measures of students who might not be doing well in school is they haven't had breakfast. So Superintendent Gormley's been helping me this year. We've been doing a lot of promoting at breakfast. We've done a lot of newsletters. We've had it in the blog. And right before February vacation, I sent a letter out to every free and reduced parent to let them know that breakfast is available in all 6 of our schools. And I looked at our participation. 30% of the free and reduced students were participating in breakfast before the letter, and we're up to 35% of those students participating.
We should be at 100.
We should be, we're at lunch, we're at 90% of all the free and reduced students get a lunch every day, which is fabulous. So we just keep pushing and plugging along for breakfast. It's such an important meal. It's available in every school, which has really been a great gift for Milton schools. Our breakfast card is really helping at the high school. We have at the Fieldhouse store, we got a grant a year ago, an $8,000 grant from the Commissioner of Education and from Fuel Up to Play. And we do about 50 to 60 breakfasts on that card alone. And then we do another 50 or 60 in the cafeteria. So that's a great.
May I interrupt you for a minute? We don't really do this. But Jackie Morgan is so passionate about this breakfast program that after she came to us and presented all her ideas, when she left, I said to John Phelan, "Oh, are we going to get a prize for more children? Like, is there some kind of reward that we don't know about?" I mean, you take it personally, every aspect of this, and I really want to compliment you.
Thank you. I'm hoping the prize is better scores.
That is, John told me that's the...
It's a great answer, Jackie Morgan.
So as most of you know, all of our products in the morning are whole grain and whole wheat. But this year, we noticed a lot of students at high school weren't taking milk at breakfast. So we worked with the milk company, and we basically just heat up our chocolate milk, and we serve cocoa. And we've gotten about 20 to 25 more students to try milk in the morning, so we're very happy. But the principals have been working with me, the superintendent, trying to get breakfast into the newsletters. Mr. Jett and Karen Spalding just did a snack program during the MCAS days with food service, trying to encourage children to have something to eat before the test. That was great. And I don't know if any of you heard, but we had a contest this year. And a huge thank you to Becky Padera, a school committee member, with a brilliant idea, so much fun. So
Can I
our
just say,
iron,
I came up with the idea and ordered the awards. Everything else was Jackie Morgan.
so we did have a lot of fun with Iron Chef Junior, and I'm just really quick because I could talk about it all the time, and I know I do. So we had 6 teams. We mixed up all the children from the 5th grade across town, which I thought was really great. Every team had one Tucker, one Glover, one Cunny, and one College. They really got to know each other, so when they go to middle school, they're going to have automatic friends, which is wonderful. We got 6 fabulous chefs in town, and they all were given the same food, and they had to create a meal in basically an hour and a half. So some of these are the pictures, and the children over here on the right, I just love that picture, how they're paying attention. John Phelan is speaking to them, and he's asking them how often they had kale, and he never heard of kale till he was 40 years old. The way that they're all engaged and looking at him, and they were so into this event, and they worked so hard. And we did have our celebrity judges. I know some of you saw those pictures, but I just couldn't help myself. So I asked Chief Wells, who changed a conference, to come. And Walter Timilty was the first person to RSVP to me. I am in. What can I do? I am thrilled. I am fabulous. We had the head of the nutrition program and services, Katie Millette. She came after like probably a 12-hour workday, and she came. And then we had our wonderful Mary Gormley. And we had James Jett as a high school principal, because I really wanted the students to see the high school and see the principal of the high school. So here they are in 5th grade, and they come into this facility, and they see this wonderful program, and to meet the principal. And then we had a 5th grade student be a judge, because what we like as adults and what 5th graders like are usually very different. So this is our winning team. It was our chef from Steel and Rye, who, once again, John Phelan got her to accept to be one of our judges. And we have a student from each one of the schools there, first place winners. And just to like even make Iron Chef more, we were invited into the State House. Becky came in with me and Maura Downs and John Phelan. We received a small grant from Mass Action for Healthy Kids, and each year they have a legislative breakfast at the State House to educate our legislators how important breakfast is and taking care of the whole child. So John Phelan was asked to speak about the whole child, which was a great speech. And we brought 21 children in on a school bus. I haven't been around fifth graders for a while. That was a long day. It was a wonderful day. And the kids had a great day. And we also, at the same time, I just mentioned, we had got that grant in. And what we did after the presentation, the children spoke. Look at them all with their hats on. Are they adorable? And on the way home in the bus, they still had their hats on. So we picked randomly. I just asked the children all together, if anyone would like to speak, come talk to me privately, because I didn't want to make anyone nervous. And 6 of the children came forward, and they all spoke about their process and what they did in the State House in front of 100 people. It was just amazing. And then we had Brian Joyce and we had Walter Timilty both give us tours. They gave us citations. They explained how the State House works. We were up on the big stairs having pictures with Walter Timilty's office. Brian Joyce brought us into the Senate chambers and gave them a little history lesson. And it was just a great, great event. And I just couldn't believe their hats were on all day. And we have just a little thing we wanted to, I think I just have to touch this. Before I do that, I just want to say a huge thank you to Mike Lynch from Milton Cable. I don't have the correct title. But when we did this Iron Chef, Mike Lynch filmed it live and projected it out into the cafeteria for the 200 people that were there watching. And everyone was bumping into his equipment and almost knocking things. He stayed so calm and so cool and so collect. And then just on top of all this, he put a little video together.
I don't know how you're going to top the Iron Chef next year.
Yeah. It's going to be pretty difficult.
Get ready.
Is there sound? Hit the sound button, Jack.
There she is.
Top.
Mary was on a team, apparently.
Mary, did you eat any of that kale?
I was a judge. I had to try each meal. Not to be outdone by the police chief.
I'm a little worried about that. I know.
Look at the knives they let them use.
I know.
They were from Whole Foods. They were
I know, I know.
Plastic
Yes. Jackie, do you want to recognize the chefs?
So this is our chef Tony from.
You take a mic. Just grab the mic, Jackie. Grab a mic.
This is Suzanne, that was Suzanne Lombardi from The Plate. This is Lauren Barone from her catering company. Before was Abby Park, Chef Tony. We had Megan Thompson from Stale and Rye. And we had Alex from Whole Foods.
Stephanie McFadden.
Stephanie McFadden, who owns a catering company too. And they all announced themselves in the video. Too bad we didn't have the sound. But it just shows how hard they were all working.
That's Stephanie.
Here's Stephanie right here. Watch this. Well, this is the music to The Best Day of Our Lives, is the song that's singing right here, which was...
We could sing it.
Maybe we can get this posted on the website so people can watch it with
Yeah.
the sound at home.
The kids would love that. That would be great.
So each group was given the same exact food. They were all given kale, they were all given garbanzo beans, diced chicken, sweet potatoes, and they had a choice of grain. And all in there. And I'll tell you a nice story. We were waiting for the bus at the State House, and I was sitting with all the students and Becky Padera and Maura. And I said to them, so I really need some help. Tell me what I could have done a better job with. And they're all looking at me like, what? I said, no. Some constructive criticism. Tell me what I... And so one boy goes, well, you only put all the winning recipes on the menu. Maybe like you could put some of our recipes on. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. So next month we're having kale chips in all the elementary schools.
Kale chips is great.
Yeah. So it was a great event, the Iron Chef Junior.
Congratulations.
Becky?
I have to say something. I just want to say, too, thank you to your food service team, because you saw them in the background. They were working, too, with the chefs to show them what it was like to cook in a high school kitchen and some of the limitations they had to deal with, as well as with the ingredients as well that we gave them. And all the ingredients, as you said, were a surprise, so I think that was fantastic. But thank you so much for doing that, because I had so much fun working with you on that, and the kids, it was one of those things where you didn't know how exactly it was going to turn out until we did it, and it couldn't have turned out better. I think it was other than we were worried we were going to have too much time, and we were definitely packed in there with time. I mean, they did such a good job, and every single one of those meals was incredible. I mean, they did a really good job. But other than the Iron Chef Junior that I could talk about all day, I have one other question just for people that might be listening about the breakfast program. What time can kids get breakfast until? Do you know each school, like what time they
So
serve?
the best way to explain it to parents is basically breakfast is available for 20 minutes before their school begins.
Okay.
Children who ride the bus are all given the opportunity to come and have breakfast. Students who go to before school are all given the opportunity for breakfast. Students who walk, who get dropped off. And we even have situations that we're working now with our wonderful nurse at the Pierce School, Barbara Perry. We now give her 6 breakfast bags. So sometimes what she finds is students come to her with headaches, and it's kind of like our principal at Glover said, they didn't have breakfast. So she'll have a full, complete meal in a bag, and she can just give it to little Jackie Morgan, and then she emails the manager, and the manager just rings the child through as a breakfast.
Perfect.
So we're giving them a complete juice, milk, a whole grain muffin or something, quick to go, and we're hoping that helps catch some children who didn't have breakfast but need to eat.
Yeah, I'm just wondering too, kind of, if they know that, a lot of these kids sometimes come to school a little early because they have an activity like a math league or, some of the other programs that start, come 20 minutes, 25 minutes before school. And if they know that, sometimes they can get breakfast at school. They can help either get breakfast where they're not getting it altogether, or maybe they only had time for something quick and they could get breakfast there. Is a great idea.
I did check that, like the math school math league, sorry, the Tucker School Math League does have the opportunity. They have a big breakfast count on Math League Day there. So a lot of the Math League principals those days, they do know to bring the children down. And sometimes they get breakfast first and then they go to Math League.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
But it's still a low participation breakfast, so we really need to work
on it.
So I would like to thank Jackie because she does an outstanding job, and we say it every year, but that's because she does it every single year. And when we were joking that she gave the right answer around what she does increases student achievement, the answer is that what she does increases student achievement. It provides students with great nutritious food that gets them back in the game of thinking and learning and understanding and being ready to learn every day. So I want to personally say thank you, and I want to say that I'm going to work with the principals so your 30 to 35% goes up to, I want to get a goal of 50% by June. So we'll make that a goal in public to see if we can reach that by the time June 1st is, because I think it's very, very important. And Becky and Jackie and I went down to that program at Gillette Stadium, and the data that is behind students eating and being active has a great connection to student outcomes and their engagement in school. And that was brought in with the box program that Superintendent Gormley and yourself and Larry Rooney and Becky brought in. So my son was at a box program this morning at the Pierce Middle School. He went in early, he was active, he had breakfast, and he started his day about as best as you can. So thank you for all those things on behalf of the students. And the Milton Public Schools' great student outcomes that are shown on our website are due in large part for teachers, but also for our cafeteria workers and the leadership that you have in your work in the food service. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Kristen?
I have to say, and Jackie, you know that I think you just do a fabulous job. I do have one little complaint. I got requests from children at my house, teen athletes at my house, for more requests for whole wheat bread, peanut butter, and chocolate milk after they came to your little seminar there. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just bought a whole gallon of chocolate milk. Where did it go? So and there was some grousing about having to go to that. I just want you to know that.
Good.
And then it completely turned around. So it was a wonderful event from what I understand. So
Thank you. And I think the
thank you.
team captains really were a big part of that. They really worked hard to encourage their teammates to attend.
The message was, you have no choice, you're
Yes.
going, so.
I might have said that.
Yeah, that was good. And then to just say, the Health and Wellness Committee, which you have been an active and avid part of for a long time, since I've been on it, that, it's a very popular subcommittee to be on, and I'd really like us to take some responsibility for that, but we can't. It's because Jackie brings all this sampling of very healthy foods, and if Jackie's ever not there, people go, where's Jackie? Where's the food? I'm leaving, so thank you for making our subcommittee so popular.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Kelly?
So thank you for all that you do. And I'm just wondering, it's so great that we're emphasizing breakfast, great breakfast, great lunch. But I know in previous discussions around the high school schedule, the talk about being able to get something somewhere in between breakfast and the late lunch has been an issue. And I'm wondering, as we look at, maybe looking at how we do schedules differently, whether we can try and integrate that really healthy habit of getting meals at good intervals along the day might be entertained. So.
On behalf of Principal Jett, he has introduced that subject to a site council, and he has had student representatives report out and present that issue to his site council, and he's working with through the site council to maybe change that policy at the high school. That was brought up to our attention, I believe, about a year or so ago.
So I guess that's another opportunity for food services to be able to supply a healthy snack somewhere in that interval.
Mr. Zulus?
Just very quickly, Jackie, what exactly are you doing with the Department of Defense? I didn't quite get that.
I'm using their bid pricing.
Oh, all right.
Did we have to buy all spinach? Was that it's a
Lot of
Popeye-
spinach
Popeye
coming.
reference, I don't know if anybody else got it.
Got it. So they are locked into pricing.
Right.
So we are championing on that pricing, but I get entitlement dollars. So a certain percentage of how many children purchase lunch entitles us to commodity foods.
Okay.
So commodity foods used to be the program where they'd keep Farmer Joe growing his crops, and if he couldn't sell all his crops, the USDA came in and bought his crops at full market value so that he would keep farming, and then they would donate those foods to schools, state hospitals, and state prisons. So now that program has turned around because school breakfast and school lunch is a place where most children get their healthiest 2 meals, especially those who are struggling in low-income families. It's become so the commodity program has changed now where they're focused all on healthy, nutritious food. The meats are 80-20. Before they used to be 60-40. I'm dating myself. But so the food has turned around and become very, very healthy, and that food is donated to the Milton schools. So it's based on how many, right now 62% of the children buy lunch every day in Milton. And it's a very high participation rate. But because of that, we get a lot of entitlement dollars that I spend on food. So this year I gave $11,200 of that money towards Department of Defense, fresh produce delivered every Thursday. So we're having fresh strawberries at Pierce on Thursday.
Ms. Gormley?
If I might, when we were interviewing for the Assistant Superintendent for Business, and in school districts, that position oversees the food service. I think to a candidate, when we spoke about food service, the candidates would talk about the difficulty they had with their food service programs and how they were running at a deficit and how they had to use school dollars really to subsidize the food service programs. And so Jackie Morgan is to be complimented in that she runs a program that makes a profit, and she maximizes every single dollar. And when I see Jackie, it makes me proud that in the school building project, in some communities, and we did it years ago, what's the phrase?
Satellite.
Not lease out, but what's the phrase? Contract out?
Contract management.
Contract. You contract it out, and a company comes in and feeds the community's children. But because of the school building project, there are kitchens in every school. I was in the Milton Public Schools when a truck cooked the food at one school and then delivered it to the other 5, and that wasn't very appealing when the truck came at the end and the food wasn't hot. But Jackie has, because of the school building project, and she prioritizes those kitchens, maintains them. She's after us all the time, isn't she? All the time about the equipment in those kitchens and state-of-the-art, and the work that you do statewide and the ideas that you bring back to the Milton Public Schools. I'm very, very appreciative.
Thank you. And I do have to say that it's my 30 coworkers of my food service staff who do above and beyond amazing work every day. And no matter what's happening in their life, they greet those children with a smile. They serve lunch with a smile. It's not always the easiest job. They're on their feet. In June, it's about 100 degrees in every kitchen. And no matter what's going on, they show up with a positive attitude. We just had a training about 3 weeks ago on our half day. It's called the FISH training, about be there, be positive, have some fun at work. And to see that about 20 of them were able to attend, just smiling and giggling, laughing, and enjoying their coworkers. It's just really such a nice feeling. They really do such an excellent, excellent job, and we're so lucky to have those 30 cafeteria employees. And most of them have to go off to a second job. They work so hard, they're on their feet. So I just want to compliment them every minute I can of how lucky we are to have them and their dedication.
And Ms. Gormley, we were thinking the same thoughts, because as I was watching the presentation tonight, Jackie, I was thinking back to the days of when we were on building the new schools and how hard you advocated for having those kitchens in every building, that we weren't going to have satellite building kitchens anymore. And you have made it fun. You know, I just spoke about learning is fun. Well, you make food fun, and the kids feel involved, they feel a part of it, and you go out of your way to make it an enjoyable experience for them. And I think by virtue of that, you're cognizant of the whole child, not just what they put in their bodies, but you're really, you're responsive to all of that, and that's a huge gift that you give to the children, not only the children, but the families, because I know you put a lot of parents' minds at ease by knowing that they're in good hands with you, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Walker?
Well, Jackie, I think that we've got clearly the best food services program in the state,
Thank you.
if not the country, and it's because of you. It's kind of hard to imagine someone who has as much passion about what they do as our superintendent, but I think you're right up there.
That's
And
a wonderful compliment.
I could repeat what everyone says, but I won't. But thanks to you, thanks to Becky, that an idea like Iron Chef is something that helps our children to develop the skill to make better food choices, and that's a gift, a skill that's going to serve them for the rest of their lives. And the point is, they don't even know that. They don't know that's what's happening, but that's what's happening, and that's pretty big and it's pretty important. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'll get
Thanks,
you all a
Jackie.
copy of the
Thank you.
video with music.
Under happenings, I'm going to ask Mr. Phelan to begin and give us an update on our first grade selection process.
Thank you, Superintendent
John.
Gormley. We have completed the process for families choosing their grade 1 programs at our kindergarten, in our kindergartens at each of our elementary schools. All of our kindergarten parents received an email last week or 2 weeks ago stating that they have been chosen for the program of their choice. We were able to say out loud that at the Collycott School and at the Tucker School, all families who chose either the Innovation Pathway or French program were being assigned to those programs. And at the Glover and the Cunningham, some of those students who chose French were then notified that they were put into a lottery. So we were very upfront and clear with all of our parents who were not given their choice with a second email that outlined a lot of the data around the French immersion lottery and some of the statistics that we provided them and some of the data that we provided them in the second email around what schools did have the lottery, how many students were actually in the lottery at their school, and the data looked like in the email that there was going to be a lottery at the Glover and the Cunningham. The Collycott and the Tucker did not need one. There are no spaces at the Collycott at this time, but there are 7 seats available at the Tucker School. There are 13 students on the wait list currently at the Glover, and there are 16 students currently on the wait list at the Cunningham School. That's a total of 29. So each of those families were given a wait list at their individual school and a wait list number for their district-wide seats. We approach this process in phases, so the first phase has been completed. Their students have all been assigned to their programmatic choice or their programmatic seat for next year. What we do now is we wait until June to see if there are any shifting in the data that happens between now and June. We will communicate with parents on the wait list at that time, and they've been notified of that. And then we will also look at Phase 3, which is over the summertime. There have been, through history, fluctuations in some of the enrollment choices or some of the data, or people move, and we do make some last-minute changes up to the 10th day of school. So we are looking forward to trying to be as communicative as possible with our parents who are awaiting a potential change in their current situation. We ask for their patience. We have been in contact by phone and in person with a few families to make sure that whatever questions they have, we are providing answers to. And in both of the communications we sent out, we also provided the actual policy and procedure and the link to that on our website. Consistent with that, we had Superintendent Gormley mention the process in her blog last week, noting that there was a lottery at both the Glover and the Cunningham. So we know that this is a very difficult time for some parents who are awaiting this process to maybe change for them as we work through Phase 2 and Phase 3. And we are also looking at how we work our kindergarten parents and getting them ready for their assignment process, which will take place come April 30th, which is the deadline for our kindergarten folks. So that is the update that we have in place for the program selection for grade 1.
Can I ask you a question? Just a couple questions. When was the STEM night that you guys did? The most recent, you did a STEM exploration night. You had parents and kids come?
We did a STEM exploration night last year.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it just happened a few months ago.
No, we did science fairs this year, but we didn't do a
That's what it was.
STEM night.
Okay. And the 7 seats at Tucker? You said there's 7 seats still available at Tucker?
That's correct.
So those 29, do they get a choice?
So what will happen is the 29 folks are on a district-wide list, and the reason why we haven't assigned the first 7 of those folks over to the Tucker is because there may be some movement
Got it.
that we want to allow take place organically, that there may be seats that may become available at the Glover, at the Cunningham, through folks possibly changing their mind, and maybe they move out of town. And so before we assign someone to a different school, we want to let that time lapse. So that's why we approach it in phases.
Perfect.
And that same philosophy is what roots us in waiting also until August to make the second round of potential shifts, if anything happens at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
And may I ask Mr. Phelan and Mr. Pavlicek to explain the process that we went through for the 2 lotteries?
Sure, Dr. Pavlicek, who is the math person in the room and in the district and probably in the state, provided a random computer-generated lottery number to every student on an Excel spreadsheet. It was done in a manner which automatically selected and ascended those numbers from first to last, and all students at the Glover and all students at the Cunningham were put into that format, and that spreadsheet yielded a list for each school. The students that were of the 29 were then put into a second selection process in a similar format, and a list was generated of 29 names as well. The math behind that I couldn't speak to, only Dr. Pavlicek could speak to.
And he really doesn't have to explain it. We'll just understand.
Even though
that
we'd
it
like
happened.
to.
Right. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you. To continue, tomorrow night in the Milton Public Schools, there is a science fair at the PS School. The Collycott has their One Book, One School night, their fundraiser. Is it I believe it's the actual night. from 6:30 to 8
It is at the Collycott.
at the Collycott. There's a PAC meeting tomorrow night for parents who are involved in or children at the high school and are looking to transitioning. And Friday afternoon, the Tucker PTO has in the cafeteria, they're piloting movie night for their students. Last night, I could ask Ms. Bagley-Jones or Mr. Walker to report out. We formed our committee, our screening committee, and began the work of advertising and going through the resumes to fill the position of Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Human Resources. I want to recognize Kristen Bagley-Jones and Leroy Walker, who volunteered to represent the school committee on this round. Glenn Pavlicek and I serve in the committee. From the principals, James Jett volunteered. So that all the teachers and all the parents are my favorites, but so that no one thinks there's any favoritism, we go to the MEA president, and she communicates with the administrators in Unit B and the teachers in Unit A. Courtney Walsh, our math and business and technology coordinator at the high school, is representing Unit B. For Unit A, Nancy Trafoni, kindergarten teacher from the Collycott, and Jason Cody, English teacher at the high school, is representing the middle and high school staff. The PTO presidents actually picked out of a hat, asked for volunteers, surveyed all of their members. Christine Tobin is the elementary parent representative. Lauren Barone is the middle and high school representative. Stephen Pascal is a representative from CDM. Patty Elliott's representing MEA. Christine Holly is representing the PAC. They're all doing surveys of their constituency, their constituents. They created the surveys. They're sending out the surveys. In several districts, what happens, superintendents will review the applications and give the committee 10 to narrow down. I'm very proud to say, thanks to prior superintendents, we've perfected this process. And so we give all of the applications to the members of the committee. And I have to tell you, all due respect to the school committee members, but there were parents there last night and teachers, they have attached themselves to some of these candidates. They spent a tremendous amount of time, as did your two school committee members, reviewing, analyzing letters of reference, what's the intent in a cover letter, and we selected finalists. And so in the next few days, we'll be scheduling interviews next week of the finalists. The committee was very thoughtful in brainstorming. I said an impossible to replace John Phelan. They brainstormed characteristics that all are John Phelan's characteristics that would characterize John Phelan. And they stayed true to the characteristics that they were looking for when they developed the questions. They're editing one another's questions, and next week we'll be interviewing, but I wanted to give the public an update on that process. We also have a level of confidentiality at this level of the screening. Remember, this is a screening to send forward candidates to another committee that all the school committee and administrators sit on, and the charge is to set forth candidates that could be the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Human Resources. So we're into the process, and I wanted to give the public an update. I believe you remember when the Tucker gave their site council presentation, they asked all of you to be readers, to create videos that will then go into the homes of children. So, sir, I'll remind you, but circle on your calendar, and for the public, Thursday, April 10th, from 5:30 to 7:30, there'll be an art fair at the same time. So you'll be able to do two bits of business that night when you go to the Tucker. I wasn't able to go last Thursday night. Friday night I had a family commitment, but the Tucker, each of the schools has a social and around different themes. The Collycott raises money for the One School, One Book, and I'm very proud to tell you they kept it a surprise. The Tucker is the first school that had the fundraiser, and they're going to award a scholarship to a Milton High School student who attended the Tucker School. So that really is a very special endeavor, and really looking at the big picture, the pre-K through 12 picture. So they're very, very excited. I'll put it on the web. They looked for future Tucker parents and teachers, and I heard it was a reunion. I think a past school committee member, Dennis Cohane, was there. And I think you were on flight. He called you. He was really recruiting supporters of the Tucker School, so that was really a beautiful night. Also, we had Jerry Vitti from the PAC attend one of your meetings, and this is on the web. I want to remind the public, the Challenger Division, last year, I think Becky Padera could do this ad, the Challenger Division of the Little League. The Challenger Division of the Little League enables boys and girls with physical and mental challenges, ages 5 to 18 or up to 22 if still enrolled in a high school, to participate. Jerry Vitti and J.P. Plunkett are two Milton Public School parents who took an idea, and no pun intended, they've run with it, and they gave a very, very wonderful, enriching, competitive athletic opportunity, and they've brought the Challenger to Milton. So they're looking for volunteers. I'll put that on the front of the web. Do you want to speak to that, Becky?
Well, I served as a volunteer last year, and I have to say I probably got more out of it than, the participating athletes. It was so much fun. It also introduced me to the Best Buddies program, which I know Kristen is a big fan of, and that was the first time I kind of worked with them in depth, and it was just wonderful. It's just a fantastic, and we had a lot of people come out too. I think committee member Bagley Jones was there for the first game, for a couple games, and a lot of people came out, and they had such a great time, and the families were really positive, so we're hoping to have even more this year. It ran really well, and thanks a lot to J.P. Plunkett and Jerry Vitti, because they really took it, and we even had a guest speaker for the last game, which was really nice, and the kids just had so much fun. The families really loved it, so.
Wonderful.
I look forward to doing it again if anybody wants to join me.
On behalf
Can I
of,
just add to that, Mary, really quick? Sure. Really quick. The Best Buddies are going to try to help with that this year, to have some of the older kids there. Not that I'm telling you to do that, but that is going to happen, so I think that will be absolutely great.
on behalf of the MFE, last Friday was the deadline for the submissions for the Teacher of the Year, so circle on your calendars for the public, April 28th. There'll be lots of publicity before that. The MFE recognizes from parent and student and co-worker submissions a teacher at every school for the annual Teacher of the Year ceremony. Not to be outdone, circle on your calendars, April 12th, the MFE Celebration for Education. Power up.
Power up.
Power up. Mr. Phelan is working in collaboration. The funds, this is the second year the MFE is targeting the funds to technology. And we have a school committee meeting next week. We'll be highlighting some of the venues that students are being really recognized at the state level for their art, but very unique this year. Every school is going to have an art fair. Good. So some years, you remember, we all go to the field house or to the Pierce School, and it takes your breath away, but every school is going to have an art fair. I'll be sure that you know when those dates are, so that you can stop by, and we'll share that art at next week's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Gormley. Moving on to the chairman's report, I'll entertain a motion to approve the vendor warrants that have been signed. I'm sorry.
It's vendor warrant number 39.
Oh, number 39, okay. Thank you for that clarification.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Walker, seconded by Mr. Zulus. Any discussion? Mrs. Kelly?
Can we just get the total dollar amount?
I'll have to pull it up.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Do you need a few minutes?
No, it's right here.
Okay. We can come back, Glenn.
Doing that.
Okay, so we'll come back. We'll move on to the school committee goals, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Walker, please.
So we thought that it would be helpful to just get an update from the superintendent on the district goals that we developed as an outcome of our retreat. So the superintendent and I are going to do this jointly.
Right, and Mr. Phelan's going to join us too.
Good.
Mr. Walker. So, Mr. Phelan's calling up the school committee goals. The school committee spent a tremendous amount of time brainstorming, discussing goals last summer, and decided to prioritize their top 5 goals. And I believe, once this is up on the screen, Mr. Walker's going to take the first.
Correct.
Maybe we can start with that.
Maybe I can
You
start
have
with
a
that.
one-page insert in your packet, both sides.
So the first of these goals is develop and implement an integrated annual planning model, which would include strategic plans, student achievement planning, budget planning, and collective bargaining. And this is really a joint goal between the school committee and the administration for obvious reasons. The desired outcome here would be that each one of these different types of planning are linked to and inform the other, so that the strategic plan, which, by the way, we're still working towards finding a suitable consultant, and thank you, Ms. Kelly, Mr. Zulis, and Superintendent and others, Steve Paxia, who have been on this long agonizing journey with me. We'll get there, but it's been a long one. But we hope to secure a strategic planning consultant before the end of the year and start that process, so that the strategic plan and whatever outcomes we see from that would obviously inform the budget process in a way that hasn't happened before, and introduce that long-term view. I think that with regard to student achievement and the budget, for example, I think our advancement initiatives over the last 2 years have done a very good job of having those two things inform and drive each other. And again, I would hope that with collective bargaining, as we look out to the next collective bargaining cycle, that obviously what we're thinking about strategic plans and about student achievement might give us some guidance as to what our collective bargaining objectives will be in the next 3 years. So we'll have more to say on that, as obviously the driver there has to be the strategic plan, so we have to get that done.
Mr. Phelan?
Sure. So the next committee goal was to initiate digital literacy and computer coding programs of study for the Milton Public Schools. As part of the STEM initiative at our elementary schools, we have entered into several partnerships that not only benefit our elementary schools, but they will also benefit all students K to 12. The first part of that in the advancement budget was to hire a media specialist at the elementary school, and that's person Sarah Doherty works in conjunction with Bernadette Moonen as we produce our STEM initiatives, which at the first and second grade are that we do robotics, but starting next year will be coding for our third and fourth grade students. The coding piece of this goal is a very exciting one, because it's going to actually go from grades 3 and 4 through the middle school and end with the advanced placement course in coding that we have begun to plan with code.org. It was brought up by the Glover this earlier in this presentation about Code Day was something that code.org put on nationally, where everybody for an hour would code and show children and students across schools across the country how coding worked to generate some excitement. Well, we were in the fall very fortunate to partner with code.org to provide free professional development, free materials, and free curriculum for our elementary, middle, and high school coursework. So this coding as part of digital literacy, and I believe digital literacy is a bigger umbrella term, But the coding piece of this is very much alive and beginning to take form and shape. There's been a committee started just to work on the coding and the digital literacy with elementary, middle, and high school administrators and teacher representatives. And I met with them on several occasions as we prepare for this Code.org partnership. A second exciting piece to this is a grant that we partnered with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, our former science person, Marilyn Decker, along with Harvard University, MIT Media Labs, and University of Lowell, and 7 other school districts to get a National Science Foundation grant to further explore coding in computer science in public schools. And this did have a very heavy emphasis on K-2 and 3-5 coding and programming opportunities for students in professional development for teachers. So we have our feet in 2 very substantial partnerships in potential grant that we feel will bring the district a very exciting coding element that we feel is very important and very timely in how computer science can be a very, very important piece of a student's curriculum opportunity. In terms of digital literacy, what this has done is by getting this group of administrators and teachers from each level to talk about what students should know and be able to do in and around the field of computer science and digital literacy has really opened up a discussion how we absolutely need to realign what our students should know and be able to do at the end of 5th grade, at the end of 8th grade, and prepare folks for a very, very rigorous opportunity for them to be engaged in computer literacy and computer science at the high school level. So we are definitely taking part in the coding, which is a smaller component of digital literacy, as well as realigning what our students can know and be able to do at each level as they move through the Milton Public Schools from elementary, middle to high school. We are very fortunate to have this type of exposure to students that was really built on the Advancement Budget 1.0 by putting Bernadette Mooning at the elementary level and providing a media center specialist has really kicked this work off, and this advancement that was really targeting elementary STEM has really rippled all the way through middle and high school. So this is a really exciting time for science in the Milton Public Schools, and it's really becoming an exciting time around computer and digital literacy in the Milton Public Schools.
Mrs. Kelly? Thank you,
So,
Mr. Phelan.
Does learning keyboards fall under digital literacy? And is that something that we
Yeah.
see needs, to, as we move towards Park, et cetera? How does that all fit together? Where do we see that happening?
As example by the Glover video, Sarah Doherty is the media specialist for the elementary schools. And so in the Common Core, they actually have standards and expectations for digital literacy that go throughout elementary through high school. So we are absolutely looking at what the students need to know and be able to do at the early grades around simple keyboarding and knowing what the keyboard looks like. That used to be a high school typing program that I taught at Milton High 475 years ago. Then it was pushed down to the middle school, and now it's actually going to be pushed down to the elementary school. Other aspects of digital literacy would be coding, as an example. Other examples of digital literacy at the elementary level would be learning how to cut and paste and drag and click, which is what you saw Sarah Doherty doing with that group of 3rd graders at the Glover School. This in relation to the Park assessment and the technology assessment that Park is, that students, today was the first day of the Park assessment at the high school. Students were on computers and Chromebooks, and their answers and their different ways to provide answers were to cut and paste, to drag, to sort, all of which are computer literacy skills. Our elementary students will be asked to do the same thing. So this is a pilot this year for Park, but this is definitely one of the end games that we are working towards to make sure all of our students are tech user-friendly and have a skill set that not only benefits them for the purposes of taking Park, but actually benefit them just for computer science skills in general. And I actually think that the coding aspect of that is an even bigger piece of what these students will be able to know and be able to do, because it's a mental gymnastics in coding that really is something very unique and special that some students have a very good skill set in, but it's for all students to know and be able to do to their benefit similar to how STEM does that kind of work with students, how a world language does that kind of thinking with students, how math and English and reading and poetry does. So computer science is becoming a very important piece of our curriculum as we move forward.
Mrs. Kelly?
So just one follow-up on that. So is there a composition as in fourth grade as there was in the MCAS? And if there is, are they typing them?
So the answer to that is yes. And what we are going to learn in this spring of piloting Park is exactly how that skill set that we've asked students to be able to express what they know in terms of writing or in math, et cetera, and writing out a math problem or explaining their thinking in math and how that's done electronically. We're all going to learn along with the state what that will look like from a technology view. And so, yes, they'll be expected to write their essay on the computer.
But there isn't a long composition this year for Park. It's just you're answering open response questions in the reading component of the assessment.
I just can't remember when the long composition, was it in fourth grade?
Fourth and seventh.
So, and that's like 3 to 5 paragraphs, right? Isn't that what it
5
was?
paragraph essay usually.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, just from a technological perspective, and not creating more obstacles for students that perhaps have some obstacles right now, I mean, is there any thought of being able to speak into something that would, you know how that technology is coming along and...
So there's, the state is learning and moving forward as we are moving forward with them through this pilot. So I emphasize the word pilot because they're going to take all this feedback from the schools and from what we learn from students and how they navigate this process. There are a lot of built-in accommodations into the technology that students can access. So if you had needed something to be read to you, you could have someone read it next to you, which has been the case for an MCAS, but you could also hit a certain accommodation button on your computer and the question can be read to you. There's a lot of different accommodations that are going to be universally accessible to students, and some of which will only be accessible to those students who would be on IEPs and have those accommodations addressed in their IEP, in their testing portion of their IEP. This is a very big conversation about what PARC means versus what digital literacy means, but they are coming together to a certain extent, and we are learning very, very upfront and close with this pilot program this year, how that impacts our overall students, how it impacts our students with disabilities, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this pilot goes.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add that I think that the work that you just talked about, Mr. Phelan, not the Park, but the digital literacy piece is exactly why we're in dire need of having an educational technology person, and I'm really excited that that's a part of the budget, because it's been something I've been talking about for a long time.
If I might, there's a lot of press about the park, and in your green folders tonight, I've given you decisions from DESE that every student there are no exemptions, but I want to assure the school committee and the public, John Phelan has led our administrators, all of them, for the past months, regular meetings on every aspect of Park. Our administrators have gone to every state workshop. Today, the Park began at the high school, and John and I went to the 4 sites. The climate at Milton High School was just like the climate was last week or tomorrow. There was a calmness. Everybody was ready. I have to recognize John Phelan and Bob Patterson for the technology needs of the district, making sure today Bob Patterson was giving us an update, Glenn and myself, and I said, where's John? Is he hearing this? John was around the corner, listening to every part. All during the test, reporting into the state, but for parents to know, it was explained to the students, and if you took the temperature, there was a confident feeling in the school today, and you heard the references to Park. I was here when everyone said 4, 8, and 10 MCAS English, and now 4 through 8 and 10th graders English, math, and science at 3 grades. It's coming, and I've given you a letter in your packet from the commissioner, and I said to everyone, there are 7 districts that chose to have every student in their district take the park. I thought we were doing well requesting that the Tucker participate. And so, again, we're going to learn from this. I wouldn't have wanted to wait until park was administered to every student. So we're going to learn, we're debriefing, and everybody's involved in every aspect. But I felt very, very good today that there was, when John and I went to each site, it was calm, everybody was confident, and they knew just what to expect and what to do. And also, John has worked collaboratively for the last 2 years with the Milton Foundation for Education, and our budget dollars, Leroy Walker championed the schools and working collaboratively on the capital request committee for the town, and the MFE has put us, again, we have miles to go, but we're in a very, very good place between the purchases of the Chromebooks. There were students on Chromebooks, there were students in computer labs today, and so we're equipped and we're prepared.
Mr. Walker?
So this is an objective that, or a goal that we had quite a bit of discussion about, and I think I'm excited about some of what Mr. Phelan has described at the elementary level. But as I think about outcomes over the longer term, which for me would be the next 2 to 3 years, I would hope that those might be, by grade, some digital literacy standards, what we expect to see at each grade, and at the high school, an actual sequence of coding courses that an individual could take from beginner to intermediate to advanced, if they wish to avail themselves of that. And just as you've talked about it, I think there's digital literacy, and what are our minimum standards there. But for someone who wanted to go into this at a more advanced level, I think it would be great if we could offer that at the high school.
So we do offer programming in coding at the high school currently, and the reason why we were so attracted to the Code.org partnership is that Code.org, as a national group, is trying to work with the College Board to get a coding AP exam, which would mean that you would have a coding AP course. And so we're hoping to have a prerequisite course at the Pierce in 8th grade in coding that would feed into a course 1 at the high school, and then an AP course at the high school. So that's the goal, and that should be in place in probably year 2 or year 3. So year 1 would be next year, and the following year, the Code.org folks and the College Board hope to, are already having discussion about that AP exam being a College Board accepted exam. So that's the goal for the district.
Great.
Okay.
Next.
Next 3?
If I might.
Third bullet, yep.
The successful execution of FY14 advancement initiatives, closing the proficiency gap, advancing science and STEM initiatives, early literacy achievement. 2 years ago, the Finance Subcommittee and the School Committee charged the administration, what do you need to move the Milton Public Schools ahead? We worked with the leadership team. They went back to their individual schools. We filled this entire room from the arts to no fees for athletics, and we used the data. We used our student data, and we closed in on what the 3 prioritized areas that we felt K-12 we should highlight and look into the research. So it's on the web, the research, the latest research behind these 3 areas, and we worked as a leadership team, and the Finance Subcommittee and the School Committee charged us, what do you need to work to close the proficiency gaps in the Milton Public Schools, to advance STEM and science achievement scores, and early literacy at the end of grade 3 to have all students reading at proficient or advanced. We proposed, and there were lengthy discussions with the School Committee and the Finance Subcommittee around curriculum needs, assessment needs, professional development, and staffing. And so last year, we worked all year, really, with Finance Subcommittee and the School Committee, and I think that every time one of these presentations from the schools is set forward, the school committee should be very, very proud. These advancement initiatives are they're on the tongue, they're prioritized with every staff member. The teachers understand what the initiatives are. The entire system is moving these initiatives and prioritizing these initiatives. So this year's budget had $515,000. Again, text materials, supplies, staff assessments. You heard the discussions tonight. And again, working with the Finance Subcommittee, the leadership team, and the school committee, we're prioritizing these 3 areas in next year's budget. We're looking towards, in May, Ms. Kelly, to make that presentation to you in science and early literacy about our internal assessments and what they are demonstrating to us, the progress in student achievement. And then we'll look for the MCAS scores and any other external evaluation tools that we have to really monitor and check the progress that we're making. But again, to highlight the assessment materials you heard tonight, it was a perfect presentation around speaking to the reading specialists that these funds were able to enable us to put in place. The middle school, we don't meet at the middle school that we don't hear about the science curriculum. Dr. Karen Spalding is a recognized expert at the state and even national level. And when you have the curriculum materials and you give the teachers the professional development, Milton Public Schools students will excel in these areas. Tremendous professional development and purchase of materials that were screened. And then the STEM initiatives you heard Mr. Phelan outline. And closing the proficiency gaps is our priority. You heard from the classroom teachers. They understand identifying the students, the needs that these in the different areas, providing the materials and the instruction. And we continue, Mr. Phelan, Dr. Pavlicek and I meet with the principals, and Leroy Walker spoke to the point. We discuss individual children. And John Phelan is always very conscious when we're in these meetings that this material of science at the middle school and this early literacy thrust is benefiting all of our students. And it's challenging students who are already excelling and reading above grade level. And for me, these advancement initiatives are moving every student in the Milton Public Schools ahead. So again, targeted instruction, targeted funding. And so I would say that these advancement initiatives have become the priority of the district. And when you hear classroom teachers understand the priorities from the schools committee, that shows the system is all moving in the same direction.
Thank you, Ms. Gormley. And Mr. Walker?
So I would say that on balance, I think that this is working well. I think we're laser focused on these things. I think it will make for an interesting discussion in the July, August, September timeframe as we kind of assess where we are. And I think for each one of these, the answer is a little different, and for each one of the schools, the answer is a little different. So I think it'll be a pretty interesting discussion about how. And because as we hear the site council presentations, it's interesting to hear how they've, I think we have some common approaches, but it's also clear that they've come up with some ideas about how to approach these things for their particular school environment. And I think it'll be interesting to talk about what worked and what didn't.
Great. And the last point, Ms. Gormley?
2 more points. Develop a plan for full funding for clubs, athletics, music, and art programs. This continues to be a budget fiscal issue for the Milton Public Schools in that we cannot run our athletic program or our clubs and activities without charging fees. And so that's an issue that we often discuss. Again, we look to have no student who isn't able to pay the fee either through the identification of their family as a family who qualifies for free and reduced lunch, but other families who want to come up with that plan to come up with those fees. But again, it's an issue for me personally because I still believe I often say, for a high school child, student, a young person to identify as not having the means. And so it continues to be an issue for us because we understand the correlation between, you saw those student athletes at the beginning of tonight. It would have been interesting to ask Jack his involvement. You heard Life Smarts. I told you he was on the debate team. And so the correlation between these coaches and club advisors to I'll excel because they're checking my achievement and they're looking out for me and they're asking me how I'm doing in school and to participate in the art and music in the Milton Public Schools is in fact a gift. So it continues to be an issue, a budget issue for the Milton Public Schools.
Mr. Walker?
And I think we should acknowledge that this is what we refer to in the planning business as a big audacious goal. That is to say that it's aspirational. This is where we would all like to be, but there are a whole lot of things that need to happen fiscally and from a planning perspective to get anywhere close to this. So I think we've taken one small step this year. We added a little bit back towards the funding of athletics from the general fund, and it looks like that's going to stay in, so that's a good but very small first step. But this is, to fully fund all of these things is something that's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of what I would call fiscal good luck.
What's the phrase that you used?
Big audacious goal.
Excellent.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
Say one thing, because I don't think we mentioned it earlier, that the athletic department is having the Run for Red Nation on Sunday, April 13th, and that's a fundraiser for athletics and clubs run by senior Brendan Hunt as a senior project, and to help fund these things, particularly athletics and clubs. So.
And Frank mentioned that at the last Citizen Speak, he did mention that.
And the last, increase outreach to families with pre-K age children and increase early literacy skills for those children. Tied to our early literacy initiative, again, dealing with the research and looking at the population of children that we have in our schools, looking at children who have been in preschools, the kindergarten experience for those children who haven't been in a formal or academic preschool. We're realizing, and all you have to do is open the Globe or the Patriot Ledger every week to see that now this is a priority at the state level to begin funding procedures, recognizing that if in fact a strong educational foundation is given to children preschool and in those beginning grades, I always say, and I see people wince, but to me, the first grade teacher who has now become the pre-K teacher and the first grade teacher is the most important person in a district. They lay the foundation for a child, a student's entire career. And so this is a priority. And in next year's budget, we've put a part-time position, who Ms. Bagley-Jones will quickly tell me the person doesn't exist, to reach out K-12 to our families. But the target is going to be for us to come up with a pilot. And it's very timely because I forwarded information to you that the state is looking to begin grants and piloting school districts that are doing formal programming for pre-K age children. Of course, space is going to be an issue for us, but if we can, in fact, provide those kind of experiences, those children, all children, the children who aren't in a formal setting and will reap the benefits, as will all of society.
Thank you, Ms. Gormley. I think it's helpful for us to reflect on our goals, throughout the year, so I think this was a really helpful exercise. Just to go back to the approval of the vendor warrant, number 39, the motion was moved by Mr. Walker and seconded by Mr. Zulus. We have a dollar figure, as Mrs. Kelly asked for. The total amount of that warrant is $455,829.19. So we have a motion, it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I'll amend my motion. Move approval of the warrant number 39 in the amount of $455,829.19.
And that's a friendly amendment, so we're good. Any further discussion? Mrs. Kelly?
Just that I will be abstaining on this vote because one of the line items is, again, not one that I consider under our control, so I'll be abstaining.
So you mean we could have voted this 15 minutes ago?
I'm sorry. Say that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I didn't hear that, Mr. Walker.
I said, so you mean we could have voted this 15 minutes ago?
Well, I had asked the last time we voted the warrant that we include the dollar amount in our vote. I guess I was just trying to follow that same protocol.
Thank you. I accepted it as a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, I appreciate it.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? That's 5-1, thank you. And the superintendent's evaluation, very briefly, Mr. Walker?
Very briefly. So the superintendent and I met, looking at, I noticed I brought my big book, but no one else did, but you don't need it. We made some small changes to the goals, mostly looking forward, but the changes that we made were to adjust the 2014 student achievement targets. There, we were looking at the pace or schedule that we've agreed to is a 5% increase in closing or decrease in the proficiency gap each year. I noticed that for the coming year, we had added 5%, a 5% improvement to the goal, part of the goal that was achieved. Let's say for discussion's sake, it was 3%, 3% rather than the 5% we had asked for. So the target then became 8% rather than 10%. So we adjusted it because the schedule we've agreed to is a 5% improvement each year. So it should be 5% this year, over 2 years 10%, over 3 years 15%, and so on. Second, we simply added elementary and middle school science to the district improvement STEM goal to reflect the work that's being done at the elementary and middle school level. I encourage the superintendent to add the strategic plan as a district goal, since that's a goal of ours and hers. For the professional practice goal, which is learning walks, we simply added what the desired outcomes are to make it clear that the goal or the objective is not simply to do the learning walks, but to actually impart some skill or some information which will then improve instruction in some way. So we've clarified that. We added the development of community partners to the district improvement goals. Again, that was something that was already ongoing, and we updated several of the timelines. So what you'll see the next time we talk about this, which I believe the end of the period is end of June, you'll just see those changes reflected. But most of them, as I said, are prospective or forward-looking.
I think it would be helpful if you emailed those out to all of us.
And I have to tell you, if I might,
Yes.
it's a very valuable process to take out and to bring out and look at and reflect and update. So I appreciate the time you gave that, Mr. Walker. I made copies for everybody tonight. There's one edit after you went over that I have to make. So by noontime tomorrow, I'll email this to everybody.
Great.
I have a complete new packet with the new goals and all of the edits that Mr. Walker suggested. So I had those for you tonight, but there's one mistake in here that I want to fix, so I'll email by noontime tomorrow.
So just to clarify, Ms. Gormley, I think that some of the changes that you made were reflective of the comments from the committee members around the table.
Mr. Walker took all of them.
Right. I was just trying to be
Yeah.
clear that they weren't Mr. Walker's edits per se.
No, it was the
Right.
sum of the discussion that we had. I simply volunteered to sit down with the superintendent and.
I think that those of us
do it.
around the table know that. I was just trying to clarify for everyone else
Okay.
that that's
And,
exactly what it is.
Glenn Pavlicek and John Phelan have to work on it too, so this is a cumulative. But it's the systems goals, so it's a very, very valuable process.
The only suggestion that the superintendent didn't accept that I made was that there are some initiatives that we should be very proud of that took a considerable amount of time, such as the work that we've done on safety and security, which she led, the collective bargaining planning and execution, which Ms. Padera and Mr. Zulis and the leadership team have been a part of. But both of those were significant time commitments and planning commitments that I think should be reflected in there, but she did.
Thank you. Have that out by noon tomorrow.
Okay. We'll move on to the Finance Subcommittee report. Mrs. Kelly?
Thank you. First item is the compliance report. So I guess I would refer to Dr. Havlicek to just give us a brief overview. I don't anticipate that we have to vote on this. It's just basically to update the public on what it is.
Right, this is an information item. Once a year, Powers and Sullivan, who are the town auditors, as part of the town's audit process, come in and spend a day to 2 days in the business office, and they issue a report with the rather imposing title of the Report on Applying Agreed-Upon Procedures over Compliance Applicable to Massachusetts School District's End-of-Year Financial Report. Basically, they look at the procedures we invoke to create the DESE end-of-year report. Probably the most remarkable thing about this is the title is actually longer than the body of the report itself, because there's really one sentence in the middle of it that's other than the boilerplate at the beginning and the end, which says that no instances of noncompliance with agreed-upon procedures were noted. So
That's
this
good
is
news
the
story.
work of Lisa McDonough in the business office, who does a fabulous job taking care of all the reporting for the DESE. And to no one's surprise, they found she did it flawlessly, which is good work on her part. So that's an informational item. As part of the report, I'm obliged to say that publicly and give copies to various town officials.
Duly noted. Thank you.
The next item, last meeting, we had talked about impact of new housing in town on the schools, and Dr. Pavlicek, excuse me, did some research and put together a memo that he will be forwarding on to the Board of Selectmen. I think in our discussion, you basically Finance Subcommittee and forwarded to. I think what went out with the materials, we maybe edited a little bit at the Finance Subcommittee yesterday. Is that right?
This is the edited version, or it should be. Yeah, I replaced, a second one went out to replace the first one. You should have gotten
Okay.
a revised one.
Anyways,
It's only
there
about-
was a revision
it's
to
only about
the one that I'm
10 words
looking at
different.
now. But essentially, it just outlines, based on a state expert's opinion, sort of what the impact will be. And that will be forwarded onto the Board of Selectmen. So I thank you for that work on that. Yes, sir.
So I would just add that included with that was a recommendation. What Dr. Pavlicek found in his research was that many towns have taken the position of asking developers to include a certain amount that would allow them to fund a fiscal impact consultant. And I just point out that we also made that recommendation to the selectmen, that it's probably helpful to engage some expertise to help evaluate that, and that developers should fund that.
Next item is the approval of some revolving funds or accounts that have been added. And Dr. Pavlicek, if you could just explain what those are.
We've added 3 revolving funds to the chart of accounts. One is a revolving fund strictly to handle the flow-through of advanced placement fees from the high school students through to the College Board, to segregate those from any other fees that come in. A second is a revolving fund that will capture and then respend special education tuition for the students that we have now tuitioned into the district. in particular in our NEC or Partners programs. And we needed a place for that money to accumulate and then go back out for special education purposes. And the third one was mentioned earlier, the box grants for the various different schools. We have an account that we wanted to set up where we could funnel that in for the various different schools with separate line items for the schools to spend it out of for their activity, with regard to those grants. Rather than set it up as a grant, as 6 different grant funds, because they're small amounts, and setting them up in the town's chart of accounts, we elected to do it as one revolving fund with 6 line items in it in our chart of accounts. It just makes it easier on the town side than setting up lots of very tiny grants. You know, they're $500 to $1,000, which from the town side are small grants. So we just wanted to have it in one place, so we decided to do it as a revolving fund. So since these are Chapter 71 revolving funds, they need approval of the school committee to be set up.
So I would move approval of the 3 revolving funds outlined by Dr. Pavlicek.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Kelly, seconded by Mr. Walker. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
And then the last item, are we ready to?
Yes.
Okay, good. I will again turn it over to Dr. Pavlicek for an update on the power purchase agreement.
Those of you with long memories maybe remember that several years ago, we contracted for an off-site solar farm in Natick to buy power from it. And due to some legal complications involving the site, the developer was never able to actually build the farm on that site. And within the last year has decided to abandon the notion of building at that point. They have, however, found a new site, which is the old Stop and Shop warehouse down in Reedville, which is an enormous building. They've contracted to use the roof of that for a solar farm, which will be able to generate even more power than the Natick site would have. We were committed to buy slightly over 3 megawatts of power a year from the Natick site. This will generate 5 megawatts of power a year. We use currently about 4.2 megawatts of power as a school system. So what we have is an amendment to the net metering power purchase agreement that we signed several years ago, which would allow us to buy 4 megawatts of power from that site annually. The town is going to enter an agreement to buy the remaining megawatt of power from that site, pending approval of the selectmen and so forth. But what we have is an agreement here for an amendment. I got final approval through council yesterday. We had it was a long negotiation as to what the rates should be and so forth, but town council approved it yesterday. So what we have here is an agreement. It should save, it's hard to project, but between the town and the schools, something on the order of $300,000 to $400,000 a year in electricity costs. This will not be online and producing probably till at least January. They're in the permit process now. They'll be building over the summer and into the fall with the hope of starting to generate by the end of the calendar year. So what I have for you is a motion would be to approve, to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the school committee this amendment to the net metering power purchase agreement that was previously entered into by the school committee.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Kelly. Any further discussion? Mrs. Kelly?
Just one comment, and that is that the administration is to be commended, along with Bill Ritchie, the many years of work that has gone into reducing energy consumption within the schools, looking for very innovative ways to reduce our costs. It's something that really deserves kudos from anybody who recognizes all the hard work that went into it. So thank you very much for that.
It's been a long, tireless process to get here, but, or Tiresome, maybe.
I was going to say tireless probably wasn't the right
yeah.
word.
Weary, maybe, but thank you for your perseverance with it, because you certainly worked on that as a school committee member and then now as our assistant superintendent for business.
It has been a very long process, and I would commend Dr. Pavlicek for his work over the last 3 months or so, during which he was able to bring to fruition something which we weren't able to in the previous 3 years. So thank you and good work, and this is going to save us a considerable amount. So it's real money.
And I think that the school committees to be, not that we have to pat everybody on the back, but let's talk about the solar panels on all the schools and now this agreement, where a lot of groups are very conservative and school systems aren't doing this and towns aren't doing this. And so it might have been under one of the core values of risk-taking and innovation. And I was one who had to be convinced about the solar panels on the buildings. And it's been a long time coming. And so it's good for the town and it's good for the schools.
Thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
Good for me, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. We're going to postpone health and wellness, seeing as it's 10:35. Any old business, citizen speak topic responses?
So I would just say this is in response to the citizen speak we heard tonight, and Kristen asked about this. It seems to me that a STEM night seems like a good idea, so I would suggest we do that.
Okay, we'll look to hear more about that. Anything else? Any agenda items for our next meeting?
No, but could we put health and wellness up so it's not at 10:30?
We don't want to, yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience with that, Mrs.
Can
Kelly.
we just get an update on the remaining calendar and what's
Yeah.
slated for those meetings?
Yes.
Or just to say the dates again, because
For date meetings?
question about that, yeah.
So we're meeting on the 2nd of April. We're meeting on the 30th of April. That's our reorg meeting.
Okay.
And then May, you might as well just pencil in every night of the month
Thank you.
with town meeting and high school senior events and meetings, so thank you. Any further agenda items for next meeting? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to move to executive session for the purpose of negotiation strategy for collective bargaining with AFSCME and negotiation strategy for collective bargaining with MEA, not to return to open session, but to adjourn directly from executive session. Moved by Ms. Bagley-Jones.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Kelly. This is a roll call vote. Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Bagley-Jones? Myself, yes. Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Padilla?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Thank you. Good night.